Council meeting for Monday, May 14, 2012, here at the Shaw Auditorium. And we'll start off by asking for any introduction of late items. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Add item 7A, Mayor's Report, update on the Corporate Strategic Plan. Delete 6B, delegations pertaining to the agenda, Mr. Brian Sinini. Add item 6C, delegations pertaining to agenda items, Mr. Fred Taylor, regarding Development Process Review Committee report, procedure following close of public hearings. Replace pages 43 and 44, agenda item 11B, staff reports, DP 766, 1099 Bruce Avenue. Delete agenda item 11P 4, staff reports, unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title section 57, 2589 Rosstown Road. Replace pages 253 and 254, item 14A, introduction of bylaws, housing agreement bylaw 2012, number 7141.
Thank you. Could I ask for an adoption of the agenda as amended? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And into the adoption of the minutes is circulated.
Move the minutes as circulated.
Moved. Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move right down into presentations. First presentation we have is Ms. Kathy Cook, Executive Director, BC Municipality Safety Association, to present the city with the Honourable Mention Certificate for the 2011 City of Excellence Award to recognize local governments for the activities that improve the ground disturbance, safe excavation techniques, and the best practices at or around underground infrastructure. Ms. Cook, are you...
Another photo op, Joe?
Is this another photo op? I guess I don't have... did you have a presentation?
We do.
And then I'll come up. Okay.
Yeah, you can be here to receive it, Your Worship. This is Dave Baspali, the Executive Director of the BC Common Ground Alliance.
Very much.
We were here last year at this time making a presentation to you.
Congratulations. So you want to all stand by here when
Yes,
you start?
We'll do a quick plug here. Just on behalf of the BC Common Ground Alliance and the Municipal Safety Association, we'd like to take this opportunity to present this award of honorable mention. It's a bigger and bigger deal each year. Last year you had I had the fine pleasure with my colleague here to present you the award for City of Excellence. This year, because of the awards were so high caliber, and they were yet another step forward for this award every year, that I hate to say it that the city of Victoria won, but only by a little bit. And I'd like to say that I think you'll get them next year, and I'd like to point out Steve and others here and the Public Works Department for all their fine work pulling this together, and wish you all the best, and look forward to this being on a wall somewhere here, I hope. And thanks for the opportunity to present it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You know, if this microphone's still on, I just might want to say that this is an honourable mention, but I think it's significant to point out that the honourable mention, there's only one in British Columbia, so it's still a very prestigious honour, and I thank you for that. We're ready.
Congratulations. I'll just take one. Great, congratulations. Thank you.
Please take. Well, it's a nice honor indeed, and thanks again. I appreciate that. The next delegation is Ms. Morgan Kenna and Island Timberlands and Mr. Domenico Ilandianero, I hope I'm close, from Timber West to provide a presentation regarding private managed forest land practices. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. I didn't bring anything, so I guess I don't get a picture to go away with today, but a very good award. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My name is Domenico Ianni DiNardo, and I'm here today with Morgan Kenna from Island Timberlands. We appreciate this opportunity, especially to present in our hometown here in Nanaimo. We'll be very brief here today. It's just going to be a wave-top exercise to give you a taste of what we hope we'll elaborate on next week. This is the agenda. I'll talk quickly about the land and the companies, our origin. I'll talk about the legislation and certification regimes that we fall under as private managed forest land. I'll also start with some typical planning processes where I'll hand it over to Morgan Kenna, and she'll talk about managing and protecting water in your very important and impressive watershed here in Nanaimo. This picture summarizes your history and our history quite well. This is probably the early 30s. You see here Timber West's predecessor company, Comox Logging and Railway Company. Island Timberlands will have a similar picture, and the train will say Victoria Lumber Company on it. Those are the days when almost everybody either worked in the woods or knew someone who worked in the woods. Today, even though the E&N Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway Company land grants of 1884 to 1925 still persist in many ways. Most of us see it on our private land titles or in and around the city of Nanaimo. But it dates back to the coal barons, who were given 750,000 hectares of land for coal exploration on the southeastern quadrant of Vancouver Island, a very important piece of property. It was successful in spurring development on this part of the colony in Vancouver Island. But things have changed, and today Timber West and Island Timberlands are the two largest owners of land. Timber West has 330,000 hectares of private managed forest land, mostly within the southeastern quadrant of Vancouver Island. Island Timberlands has about 260,000 hectares of private managed forest land, mostly in this quadrant, and I must say they're an excellent runner-up. We're always happy to have them around. And the times have changed in terms of the difference in acts and regulations that apply to these lands. The Water Act and the Fisheries Act, however, have been around for over 100 years. The Water Act is where private managed forest land companies or any operator needs to request permission to work in and about streams. The Fisheries Act has applied for a very long time. It requires people to ensure their activities don't harm or alter or disrupt or disturb habitat for fish. More recent times, the Drinking Water Protection Act has come about. The Wildlife Act, very important for species at risk. It ties in with the Federal Species at Risk Act, of which we are very much engaged with. Our day-to-day operating statute, however, is the Private Managed Forest Land Act. It is a joint council staffed by government appointees and private landowners. The majority is government appointees in the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. And also, of important note, and we'll talk about this more next week, is there are a variety of professional statutes that require professional engineers, professional foresters, professional biologists to be a part of the planning, execution, and improvement of managing forests, public or private land. And there are over 30 more pieces of regulation, which I won't burden you with here today. Timber West, Island Timberlands, also a very important aspect of our operations is safety. So one of the ways we communicate things to our customers in a simplified way is to obtain certification. One of those is for our safety. We have a safe certification system. It's endorsed by the Workers' Compensation Board or WorkSafe BC, and it's a higher endorsement of our safety culture, providing recognition through reduced rates, and it's audited annually. Environmentally, however, we also have some certification certificates. Environmental Management System, you'll see there is our ISO 14001. This is our day-to-day operating program to ensure we're continuously improving and minimizing our footprint. Long-term, we have Sustainable Forestry Initiative. This is the system where we're audited independently annually, and they confirm that our rate of harvest and the methods in which we harvest are indeed sustainable over the long term. All those reports can be found on the internet. And finally, in terms of memberships and associations, we're part of the BC Private Forest Landowners Association. So large and small landowners from across the province partake in that. And we're also part of the Canadian Association of Forest Owners, representing over 5 million hectares of private managed forests across the country, and in collaboration with the Canadian Federation of Woodlot Owners, represent over 425,000 individual woodlot and land owners. Quickly, typical land processes and planning processes. If you take this orange area that you see there northeast of the town of Lake Cowichan as an example, That's something we're interested in, and if we get closer, you start to see the layers of planning that Timber West goes through, and Island Timberlands. In this case, our wildlife habitat mapping shows that there's deer winter range, so our biologists will be called out. You also see that there's a little bit of a bear den symbol on your screen there in the middle of it, a little orange thing. These are the types of processes, along with terrain stability mapping. So our entire 800,000 acres of our land base is mapped for terrain stability, helps us decide how we build roads, how we harvest trees to ensure there's minimal risk of sediment entering important streams, harming fish, or harming drinking water quality. And to do this, Morgan will talk about this in more detail. If you see those purple lines there, those are indicating watersheds. This particular cut block, although it's one harvest unit potentially, is managed in terms of its watershed. It's managed and put into the context of its cumulative effects at the watershed level, the sub-basin level. And you can also see that there are a variety of water users. We have to notify them, drinking water users or irrigation users. All around the edge of our property, we have more neighbors than anybody else in the province, so it's very important for us to keep in touch with them. Detailed fish habitats. Both companies have tens of thousands of kilometers of fish habitat mapped out. And terrestrial ecosystem mapping. Very huge project, but it's basically the genetic code of everything above the surface of the ground across our landscape. It helps us plan our regeneration and predict where species at risk may or may not be. As a commodity, it's important that we know what our products are worth on a particular day, so we do that. Various shades of colors indicate various shades of profit margin. And before I turn it to Morgan, I'll just give you an example here on the screen of the type of detail that goes into our road construction planning. We have 25,000 kilometers of road just ourselves at Timber West, and when it's constructed or deactivated, professional engineers, professional foresters play a key role in designing those.
So Domenico spent a few minutes just quickly looking over a few of the different GIS or Geographic Information System layers that we go through in our planning process. And if you're linking them all together, it's all focused on water and watersheds. There's a number of other ones that we look at, whether they be archaeological resource features or things like recreation, both very important to communities like Nanaimo and other ones around Vancouver Island. At the end of the day, the product that the people downstream from our forest planners look at is something like you're seeing on your screens right now. It's a cut block map or an opening map, and it will outline a whole range of different aspects, from the different machines or harvest system that will take place in the area to areas that will be retained for the future, or things like streams and the different retention areas around those streams that Domenico spoke of. This is the first step in designing a cut block. So many people think that harvesting may be the end of our cycle, but we see it more as the beginning of a cycle, because from then we start planning our post-harvest work, which includes tree planting, and it includes other aspects of forest management, whether it be managing different brush species or other species on site that we want to promote through the different other forest management cycles as the stand grows up, things like pre-commercial thinning. So looking from Lake Cowichan, the example you saw earlier, to our backyard, this is the Nanaimo River watershed on a large, broad scope. You can see first, second, and fourth lake, if you're familiar, sort of running through the center of the screen, and then Jump Lake, where we're going to zoom into in a minute, more in the center bottom. The Nanaimo River watershed, taken as a whole, is about 83,000 hectares. It's quite large, but the city focuses on a little bit of a smaller portion, or a sub-basin, called Jump Lake. So you can see here there's 20 different sub-basins within the Nanaimo River watershed. So if anyone's ever asking you a question, you probably want to ask them a question back and ask them where they're focusing on, because it's quite a broad area to be asking some very particular questions. Of that 83,000 hectares, about 86% is managed by private forest landowners, Island Timberlands and Timber West, through the Managed Forest Program, through the Ministry of Forest, Lands and Natural Resource Operations. Some of the other parcels there are owned by other private landowners, or you can see as you stream out towards the estuary, also groups like the city. In yellow, if you focus in, that's the Jump Lake watershed. That's where the city of Nanaimo focuses its water coming from, and it's about 1/4 or just over 20,000 hectares of the greater Nanaimo River watershed. And that's about it. So Domenico mentioned a few times, when we see you next week, we hope that you've received an invitation to a tour that we'd like to take you on May 24th to come up into the watershed in partnership with the City of Nanaimo to look at the new water treatment sites and to look at the different reservoirs and dams, and then see some forest activities along the way and have an opportunity to ask questions and learn a little bit more about your watershed. Thank you very much for having us.
Before you go, we do have some questions. Just as a matter of interest, the 20,000 hectare Jump Lake water area around the watershed, rather, is that Island Timberlands?
About 90% is owned by Island Timberlands.
Okay, and we have, before you go, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Ms. Kenna. Thank you, Mr. Iane DiNardo. Not bad, right? I'm going to ask you a question which may be slightly uncomfortable. But there are groups in this country, in this province, the Council of Canadians among them, who tell us that we should make every effort to make the watershed into a public property rather than a private one. How would you answer that?
There's probably a number of ways you can answer that. A lot of different communities are concerned about their watersheds and would like them to become either owned locally or owned provincially. It's a great challenge for a number of reasons. As a landowner, things we focus on not only from our harvest and reforestation cycle as a company, but as a landowner, similar issues that the city or the regional district face every day. There's liability when it comes to people recreating and accessing your property. That would be a great challenge for the city, no doubt. There's issues with illegal dumping and vandalism for people coming into the watershed. There's issues with contamination and making sure that it's secure. People aren't getting in, and you could do a number of things in a reservoir or in a river that could challenge water supply. There's risk to fire, making sure that you're adequately prepared in case there is a wildfire that were to go into the watershed. That's probably one of the greatest risks, is if you were to remove all of the canopy and burn it off, what could that do to the water supply in the short term? So we feel that under our different forest management framework pieces, that legislation and certification layers Domenico went over, and the way that we're audited and reviewed both by the provincial government and the different external auditors that come in that are globally recognized, that we do a great job, and we'd like to continue working on our private managed forest land in the watershed.
Okay. Quick follow-up, if I may, Your Worship. The two watersheds that you had on your map, they're both owned by Island Timberland. There's no...
I'll just step back. So many people refer to the Nanaimo River watershed in the community or in the media, and they're usually referring to this greater circle, the large red outline. The yellow outline in the subset is the subbasin called Jump, and it's named after Jump Lake. And Island Timberlands owns the majority of the Jump Lake subbasin, and between Island Timberlands and Timber West, we split it about 55-45, 55% to Timber West.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, I see no further questions. Thank you very much. Both of you. It was a great presentation. Enjoyed it very much. And most of us will be on that tour in about, 2 weeks' time, is it? So we'll save all of our questions for there. Thanks again. We have... do we want to receive the presentations? I wonder that... you have a motion to receive?
Motion to receive the delegations, Your Worship.
Okay. And seconder, all those in favor? Thanks, carried. Move into delegations on item 6A, delegations pertaining to the 2012-2016 financial plan. Next item has been pulled concerning the development variance permit, and so we'll now move into 6C. Mr. Fred Taylor. Oh, there he is. comments regarding the Development Process Review Committee report on procedure following the close of public hearing. Welcome, sir.
Mayor Rattan and council members, I raise question to the background information provided to the council, item 10A, Development Process Review Committee procedure following close of public hearings. I refer to the minutes of the Development Process Review Committee of March 13th, 2012 and April 10th, 2012. And in short, the only motion adopted from that committee was to deal with a special council meeting after a public hearing. There's quite a bit more information in your agenda that was not part of the motion, in my opinion. I believe the only other way, as the reporting of Parks, Recreation, Culture is, the entire minutes of each committee after adoption by the committee report to the council. If you're going to go beyond just the motions referred to the council. The question of Section 8942 of the Local Government Act must not be overlooked. A member of a council who, A, is entitled to vote on a bylaw that was a subject of a public hearing, and B, was not present at the public hearing, may vote on the adoption of the bylaw if an oral or written report of the public hearing has been given to the member. What's suggested to you tonight, in my opinion, this does imply the consideration of a bylaw after a public hearing at the following council meeting, not a special council meeting immediately after, because if there's an absentee, they have the right at their next meeting to vote on it. Third reading after a public hearing at a special council meeting immediately following the public hearing would deny any absent member his rights in any rezoning question. I also raised question to the receipt of correspondence at a public hearing. Without reading into the record, as usual practice, no one will convince me all members of council would be fully informed of the content of any correspondence to vote on an issue immediately following a public hearing. It could be challenged if you're not aware of the content of correspondence in how you vote on an issue right after a public hearing. In consideration of the information before the council tonight, as I challenged council on May 16, 2011 and June 23, 2011 during the adoption of zoning bylaw 4500, goodbye public hearings. Or does council only awaken to the sounds of the development community? Just consider the membership of the Development Process Review Committee. No action when I raised it about this is walking into lack of public hearings over a year ago. One may expect ideas to their benefit conflict of interest before the council when one looks at the membership of this special committee. I do not agree with tonight's staff report option number 2. This would eliminate the potential for members of either side to attempt to lobby council after the close of a public hearing, is the comment. Don't forget, fourth reading adoption still happens at a later date. So you haven't solved closing the door by having a special meeting right after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see no questions. Thank you. The next item is 7A, the Mayor's Report, and I just want to very briefly touch on the strategic planning process, and then I'd like to introduce the chair of that function, Councillor Jim Kipp on my right. I just want to comment that the strategic planning process is in the final stages as we need the community's input to review the progress so far. We have the results of our community workshops, community leader interviews, and online teen surveys, public surveys, and the comments on the blog. We also have the result of staff workshops and interviews. Council has now participated in 2 full-day workshops to reflect on the information gathered. And Councillor Kipp, as the chair, I'll turn it over to you to expand further, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And as you said, Council went through 2 grueling days of workshop, which was excellent, and reviewed a lot of the information we had, the vision, the mission, the values, the operating philosophy statements. They've been approved in principle, along with 6 strategic priorities that will be launched on our blog as of tomorrow, and the draft strategic plan will be out. We want people to read the draft and give us their feedback. Anybody who hasn't signed up to participate in the survey is invited to do so now. And don't forget the wrap-up of the community forum planned for June 6th. We're hoping for a good turnout at that. The public input is essential to help Council make important decisions on strategic priorities over the next 5 years and beyond. So to register for your final community survey and participate in Your Voice, Our Nanaimo, you can visit the city website at www.nanaimo.ca. And remembering that we're trying to bring focus, efficiency, and effective kind of management to our community. We've had a lot of opportunities for taxpayers to be involved in the consultation and the analysis. May 15th, our survey is launching now, and June 5th is our wrap-up. So hopefully you'll go online and participate and involve yourselves in the wrap-up on June the 6th. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councillor Kipp, because it's a big job chairing the strategic planning process, and you did an outstanding job on behalf of Council, and I appreciate it very much. Okay, moving into proclamations. 8A, that 2012 May 20th to 2012 May 26th is National Public Works Week in the City of Nanaimo. That B, that 2012 May 26th is Jumpstart Day in the City of Nanaimo. That C, that 2012 June 17 to 2012 June 23 is Gay Pride Week in the City of Nanaimo. And lastly, that 2012 July 8 to 2012 July 15th is Child Development Center Silly Boat Regatta Week in the City of Nanaimo. Moving into commission reports, the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, Culture Commission meeting held, March 28, 2012. Commission recommendation that Council receive the minutes of the Parks, Recreation, and Culture Commission meeting held that date.
Move commission recommendation.
And second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports. Development Process Review Committee procedure following the close of public hearing. The committee recommendation of the Council following the close of a public hearing move directly into the open Council meeting to give third reading to any bylaws that they wish to proceed with immediately. If Council so wishes, the item would be tabled until the next regular meeting of Council. What's your pleasure on that? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to speak to this recommendation from the Development Process Review Committee, and with permission, if you will, of the first and seconder of this motion, I may wish to include a friendly in that Council, following the close of a public hearing, and insert may move directly into an open Council meeting to give third reading, so that it qualifies that we have the option. We're not wishing to circumvent any process or otherwise, just simply that we have it allows us the option to. I realize that later in the motion it indicates that if Council so wishes, we could table an item to the next regular meeting. I see some stirring by staff. I'm wondering if there's a procedural issue with inserting may.
Your Worship,
We've set it up the opposite way for a couple of reasons. You have to advertise for the council meeting in advance, so it has to go ahead. But we've given the option that if council wants to defer dealing with the item, that a motion be made at the council meeting. So it can't be done the way Councillor Bestwick's asking for, but we've addressed it in the other way by allowing you to defer the item once you get into the council meeting.
May I follow that up, Your Worship? So with that said, and for clarification, that there's typically multiple items in our public hearing, or there may be. And if we wish to take one of those items into a meeting immediately following, we have the ability to do that if this proceeds.
Your Worship, the challenge with the way Councillor Bestwick proposed it is that we'd be required to advertise and give notice that there's going to be a meeting, and if we didn't give notice and advertise, we couldn't have a meeting. So our strong recommendation is that the wording that's presented in the report stay, because that sends the message to the community that failing something else coming up, this will be going forward. Council will have the opportunity, as Mr. Swaby said, if you're uncomfortable going forward with a decision at that time, to defer it. But it allows you the opportunity to proceed. If you don't make the decision that you're going to plan to proceed and instruct us accordingly and we advertise, you won't have that option.
Thank you, Mr. Kenning, and then I'll just follow that up if I may. So after every public hearing, we are automatically going into a meeting, and if there's no items that we wish to deal with at that point in time, then we will just simply table all of the matters until the next meeting of council?
That's correct, Your Worship. You would adjourn based on a motion that would defer a decision on any of the items that were brought forward from the public hearing into the council meeting.
And if only one of the items were contentious, would we deal with them seriatim?
Absolutely, Your Worship. That would be up to council on each individual item is brought forward as a bylaw, as it is at any council meeting, so your decision is separate for each bylaw.
Thank you.
Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Worship. I want to thank the proponent who brought this forth to the Development Process Review Committee, and I want to thank the committee itself for all the work that they have done on it. Nevertheless, I shall not be voting for it. And part of the reason, I guess it's easiest explained for me that there's absolutely nothing that I can think of at this moment that would make me disagree with Mr. Taylor and the concerns that he expressed. To myself, and speaking from my own personal experience, it is really important for me to have time on my own with the written reports that I get after a public hearing. And to me, to tamper with that tampers with the essence of democracy. I do need to know about that, and I do need to absorb it, and I do need to be able to ask questions if I have them. And while I know that the zoning, R1, R1A, R2, R4, and R5, are not always that controversial, the fact is that some of them are very controversial. And I know that we have the opportunity to then table it, but the system of advertising a special council meeting or an open council meeting, as the city manager explained, it just becomes too cumbersome for me. And with all due respect for all the work that you've done in it, I'm sorry I can't support it.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like staff to comment on Mr. Taylor's question about the absent council member. I'd like you to comment on the impact on the process.
Well, Your Worship, if I understood his point, that's covered given the fact that whoever's in attendance at the public hearing is going to be at the council meeting, and therefore everyone is accounted for. In the event that it's deferred, or in the event that it requires highways approval, therefore another council meeting is required, there would be a public hearing report for that councillor to read who was absent at the public hearing and the council meeting for the third reading.
So
the process would be exactly the way it is now. Whoever is at the public hearing doesn't need the report. Whoever isn't would get a report.
But the way it is now, if you were absent and you then attended the following meeting, you would have an opportunity to vote on it.
You would.
This would preclude that absent member from voting on it.
Absolutely not.
Oh,
There's a report would be provided on the public hearing at that meeting. So anyone who was absent would get the report in the public hearing at a later date.
But if the council...
Just to clarify, if council held the decision-making meeting right after the public hearing and a member was absent in the public hearing, he wouldn't have time to read, and so he would be, or she, would be not participating in that particular item.
Just simply lose, you snooze, you lose, sort of. Okay.
Thank you. That was part of my question, the absent member. The other thing with the Councillor Padgett said he likes to read the reports he got after the public hearing. He meant at the public hearing that he reads afterwards. I just wanted to clarify. No other reports come to you. Thank you. And what is it now if I was away at a public hearing and the report came through and it was passed? Would the report come through in the next council meeting? And if I was absent, I could ask to have that come back for a vote, couldn't I?
Doug? I believe that's correct, and I'll just, if I understand, Doug can think about this. If you're absent from the meeting where it was third reading after the public hearing, and you are there for fourth reading, could you ask it to come back for third reading? That was the question, I believe.
Your Worship, I think that's something we have to research. I'm not entirely sure on that.
But traditionally, the person, if he's absent, he or she can ask that it be reviewed at the next meeting they attend.
The point I would make on all of this is that regardless if it's the existing system process that we have or the proposed system, all these scenarios happen and have to be dealt with. There's no difference. It's just that one is giving council an opportunity to speed the system up. That's all it is. You can even give a verbal report on the public hearing if I understand Councillor Brennan's question correctly. They come in at 10 o'clock at night, they've missed the public hearing, but they get to the council meeting. We could give a verbal report, provide all the documentation, run through the report that went to council. It may take some time, but if that was the scenario, you could probably deal with it, as unlikely as it is.
A follow-up, Your Worship?
Go ahead.
That person could abstain from that vote and then bring it back the next time after they had time to review. So it is possible, an option for them. I appreciate what we're doing here, and being on part of the committee. The idea was in the non-contentious issues was to move it forward quicker. Instead of having to wait till possibly Monday or the Thursday, a long weekend, and 2 weeks from that. The whole idea was the soft public hearings, the easy ones that can go forward and speed them up. The only concern I do have is with some of the absent member stuff, but that's the same. I do appreciate the fact that we're moving it forward, though. And I think we would have the ability to, anything that we wanted time, Councillor Padgett, if you needed time, could absolutely request to table it because I require time for my decision. And I think Council would agree with that.
I agree.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, after listening to my colleague, Councillor Kipp, speak, I think perhaps I've changed my mind. But I was wanting to ask the seriatim voting would be an option that is fine with me because there are some less contentious issues than others. But I can see a lot of us changing our mind after having read. Sometimes we get submissions of 50 or 60 written reports, which a lot of people spend considerable time wanting us to read and digest. So I can see us perhaps voting in haste sometimes and then rethinking it on fourth reading. So,
Your Worship, just to comment on that, if any council members were concerned about that during the meeting right after the public hearing, you'd probably want to make a motion to defer that one.
Yeah, till there's more time to consider it. Councillor Beswick, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. It's my second time, so if anybody else, it's first time.
No, Councillor Bennett's next, and she's going to go around the buoy again, too.
I think what's key and critical in this context is non-contentious, and there's some bylaws that we could move forward that are residential, small-sized lots that we're splitting with no issues, that have no complications, that are simple and easy, that would allow to move forward. And to the point that Councillor Patchy made, which I agree with, and the points that Mr. Taylor made, which I don't disagree with, and the comments from staff and my colleagues, I think it's important that if we can, that we allow the non-contentious matters to move forward. And if there is any member of council that feels as though that there's more information required, or there's a contentious potential, that we would all respect that, and we would table it and defer to the next opportunity. So it's just really to move some of the less dramatic at the public hearings move forward, and time is money, and moving things forward is very important. It also takes some of the load away from our development and planning departments, and it assists the developers to know that they can advance some of their projects that are simple and clean and easy without any obstructions. So I really want our council to think about this vote. Thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just interested in knowing if this is a common complaint. Do we hear this often?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Brennan, the common complaint is exactly what the chairman just talked about. Time is money for the development community. The carrying costs are quite considerable when they've optioned the land. And so this provides that opportunity in the event that council wants to make a decision in front of a crowd, or whether you want to make a decision because no one's there, or whether you need to really have a second thought, then it allows you that opportunity. So it's just allowing the process to speed up if council feels it's warranted.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Thank you, Your Worship. One thing, this is under the Local Government Act, as it says in the report, we're allowed to waive these if we so choose, if they're in the official community plan. Councillor Padgett mentioned about the R1, R1A, and that we're not changing any of that now.
No, Your Worship, we're not proposing. That was option one.
On
no
page
waiving.
32 is not in the picture right now. It's only the recommendations on the top of page 31.
That's correct.
That's correct. Thank you for clarification.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say something about the committee makeup itself. The committee makeup is three sectors of the community. One is it's got membership on City Council. It has staff membership, and it has members of both the development community and consultants to the development community. And so, one of the good things about it, that committee has been. It's not one of these committees that meets once every 3 months or 5 months or some such thing like that. It meets every 2 weeks. It's a big job. There's a lot of work to be done, and one of the things we're trying to do is to streamline the process a little bit. This is just one step in that direction. There was a lot of discussion at the committee level relative to removal of the public process, and the committee objected to the removal of the public process. In fact, public hearings and so on and so forth. This is intended for simple processes that don't seem to have any controversy to them, and it just helps that developer or husband and wife who are developing a piece of property, the individual applicant, to move ahead with one that they can get on with. So it very much in favor of it. It's a great motion.
Your Worship, I just wanted to clarify one thing, and I know that Councillor McKay said that staff are members. I think what he meant is that staff attend, but staff don't vote. Our role is support and advisory.
Right, is advisory. Well, I think it's pretty well been said, but I certainly support it as well, because I think all we're trying to do is expedite and move forward those items that are fairly straightforward without any controversy. And in some cases, the developers may have their lawyer present or another professional, that an engineer possibly with them, and this all has a great deal of cost involved. So where there is very little issue on it and it's a straightforward matter, I certainly support moving it ahead in a more timely fashion than we have. But at the same time, I want to make sure that due process is afforded that. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to agree with you for once, actually, and that I think this is a step in the right direction, and I do support what staff is trying to do. There's many people who have said that the process at City Hall is very slow, and when it comes to non-contentious issues, it's important that we do move these things forward in a timely manner. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, I see no further speakers on that. And so question on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Oh, opposed, sorry, Councillor Pachi opposed, balance of council in favor. Motion passes. Staff reports, Community Safety and Development, DP 764 at 2525 Bowen Road. Staff recommendation that council issue development permit number DP 764 at 2525 Bowen Road with a front yard setback of 21.4 meters or 70.2 feet.
Move staff's recommendation.
Seconder? Second. All those, no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. DP 766 at 1099 Bruce Avenue. Staff recommendation that council issue development permit number DP 766 at 1099 Bruce Avenue.
Staff recommendation.
Move recommendation. And seconder? And Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Worship. I was going to congratulate staff until the city manager congratulated staff this morning, but he stole my thunder. But I would like to congratulate staff on their work and very creative discussion and planning with the applicant and the owner. And this is an excellent demonstration of how the city goes to great lengths to protect the bona fide environmental sensitive areas whenever possible and practical. So I would support staff's recommendation.
Thank you very much. I see no other questions. But Mr. Kenney, did you want to have a comment as well?
Councillor Greaves, just to agree with him, I think the planning and development staff have done a fantastic job here of identifying and protecting, working with the developer to come to a common conclusion to protect the environment for everybody's benefit.
Okay, now we have some more. Councillor Kipp.
The camas bulbs are blooming out there. The chocolate lilies are going wild. The lotus spinatus is coming out here in the next weeks. People should get out there. It's a phenomenally beautiful sight. Staff did a great job of protecting a lot more of the area than we probably would have gotten other negotiations. Good job.
Good point. Councillor Bestwick.
Highest of compliments to everybody that was involved in managing through this very difficult, and as you're going to mention too, that the ownership was also considerably involved, and so this is definitely one of those projects that I think that we'll be able to look back at and use as an example moving forward. So I'd just like to compliment everybody that had a hand in this and a role in getting us to this place. So thank you for that.
Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be supporting this. I have to tell you, I was quite prepared this afternoon or this evening to introduce Charles Thurkel as a late delegation, because I really value his expertise and knowledge about what happens at Hare-Weed Plains. The gentleman is in the audience now, but unfortunately he was here too late, and so I assume that we will have his concurrence on this as well. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thurkel, for being present too. Okay, that concludes that part. We'll move into now DVP.
Your Worship.
Sorry.
Need to vote.
All those in favor? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I was drifting off here. The next item is DVP 187 at 435 Terminal Avenue. It's requested that council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 187. Request for direction that council, 1, not issue development variance permit DVP 187 at that address, or 2, issue the development variance permit DVP 187 at 435 Terminal Avenue.
Move number 2.
Okay.
We have to ask if anybody wishes to speak, Your Worship.
Yeah, first of all, but let's get it on the floor, and we're going to bring in, it is be 1 or 2 here. Whoops. And so is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to DVP 187? Hearing none. Councillor Bestwick.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that Council issue development variance permit number DVP 187 at 435 Terminal Avenue.
Okay. Moved and seconded. That's item 2.
Item 2.
Item 2 in favor. Okay. Moved and seconded. I see no further discussion. So it is to issue the DVP at that address. No further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into DVP 191 at 3606 Overlook Drive. Staff recommendation that Council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 191 at 3606 Overlook Drive. Anyone want to move? Okay. And Councillor Brennan seconded. I see no discussion.
Yep. I have a question.
Oh, you have to be a little faster than that.
Sorry.
Councillor Batchy.
Question to staff, if I may. I would like to know where this joint driveway is going to be for the existing house and the one that's to be built on the...
Your Worship, if I could refer you to the diagram shown on page 60 of the Council agenda, and the driveway is the dashed in, which crosses in front of the existing house and will extend onto Lot B.
Okay, the existing house also has access from Hammond Bay, and I know this because this house used to belong to friends of mine, and there was an access from where this new house is supposed to go towards that driveway. So there still will be only access for them from Overlook Drive then.
The intent would be to take it from Overlook Drive due to the traffic volumes on Hammond Bay Road.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to staff, if I may. Staff has indicated in the report that this lot proposes some interesting challenges. Can those challenges be overcome?
We believe so, yes, Your Worship.
And the challenges are?
As it's a through lot, and it's also a corner lot, being at the end of a row of lots with a major road on one side and a local road on the other. The configuration of the house on the newly created lot is going to be quite constrained once the setbacks are applied. Councillor Patchy has already noted, sorry, Councillor Patchy's already noted the access issue, and so it's going to be one of our more difficult lots, I think, but still a buildable lot.
Thank you.
Okay, I see no further questions. On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're going into DVP 192 at 4771 Hammond Bay Road. Staff recommendation that Council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 192 at 4771 Hammond Bay Road.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Moved. Seconded. I see no... Councillor Patchy.
Can staff refresh my memory why something similar was rejected some time ago?
No, you just pushed it just then with your hand. I just thought it was... Sorry?
Your Worship,
I'm sorry.
This application was before Council, and there was a concerned citizen in the neighborhood came to speak to Council about some construction concerns she had with houses, as well as parking on the street, and Council referred it back and did not want to proceed with the application. Nothing has changed to my knowledge, but it's back for reconsideration. We have, I would say that staff has met with the lady that came to the council the last time, and we did talk to her about the issues. However, I'm not sure that it solved her problems, and this notification may bring her back out, and we may hear from her again.
Thank you.
Okay, so I see no further questions on that. So question on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is DVP 193 at 6728 Dickinson Road. Staff recommendation, the council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit DVP 193 at 6728 Dickinson Road. Moved. Seconded. Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I cannot support this as it is, and my reasons are twofold, really. The first one is that less than 2 years ago, we went through an awful lot of work to revamp and to revalidate the signage bylaw that this city has, and it was that amendment and those changes were done with the full cooperation of, among others, the Vancouver Island Real Estate Board and the construction industry. And so now we're being asked to change in this particular case where a sign which has been there for 2 years, which is the limit under the present bylaw, to let that sit there indefinitely until the last unit of that complex is sold. And I don't know whether that's going to happen in 2 years or in 10 years from now. This particular sign, I must admit, is it's not a bad sign. It's in good shape, and it's not all that big. But by virtue of changing this and allowing this to go indefinitely, we just leave the gate wide open for any further requests for extensions that are bound to come our way. As I said, it's an unobstructive sign. It's a good sign. It's not too big. And so I would make an amendment that we allow this to sit where it is for another 12 months. But then it would have to come down. If I can find a seconder for that.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Brennan? Okay, on that, if I can ask staff, if we did pass this DVB 193, is it correct that that means that sign could stay up indefinitely, or does it mean that the allowance that we have granted previously of 2 years would be renewed for a further 2-year period?
The applicant has requested that it be up until they sell the remaining units, noting that the market downturn and the amount of money that they've obviously put into the sign, that they'd like it to stay up until, otherwise they're going to be coming back and asking for a variance every time. And I think that's the benefit of having a development variance process, is that you can adjudicate each time. You can set a time limit if you'd like, but the applicant is asking for a permanent one until he sells the units.
Well, I have a bit of a problem with that, because I think 2 years, and I know there's a motion pending for one, I think 2 years is reasonable, and I get nervous when we start open-ending these things. Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship.
No, sorry, we're going to be dealing with the amendment here, and the amendment that's on the floor now is
for 1 year.
1 year.
Well, I won't speak in favor, I won't vote in favor of the amendment, Your Worship. I believe that the economy was in a downturn the past couple of years. There's 14 units remaining to be sold, and they could very well sell within the 1 year time frame, but it may take longer, and I don't think it's prudent or fair to a conscientious developer that has built these units in good faith and is seeking a development variance permit to restrict him to the 1 year, because I can foresee him, hopefully he'll sell them within the year, but if he doesn't, he'll have to come back.
Okay. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Richard. I won't be speaking in favor of the amendment for the same and similar reasons as Councillor Johnston just expanded, and I'll leave it at that, and then I'll, depending on how the motion goes, I'll further my comment.
Councillor Brennan.
Well, I'm speaking in favor of the amendment because I think to allow an indefinite period of time really flies in the face of the intent of the bylaw, and that is to control and manage the signage. I think that 12 months gives us an opportunity, or gives the developer an opportunity to continue to try to sell, but we'll have it back here in 12 months if he or she's not successful, and we can make another decision at that time. It gives us an opportunity to provide some oversight. It keeps us current with what's going on in the city, and to allow an indefinite one, well, then there's really no point to a bylaw in the first place.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to be speaking against the amendment. And the reason why I am is because there's a $750 fee for applying for a development variance permit. There's a fair bit of staff time involved in a development variance permit. And I would have preferred to have seen something a little bit more open-ended, that we could provide some latitude for staff to give some discretion in situations like this. So what we're suggesting, if we're going for another 12 months, in 12 months, the developer will again have to spend another $750. Staff will again have to spend more staff time when they could be busy working on other things other than dealing with a single sign. So I can't be in favor of it. This particular developer did not in any way, shape, or form consider that after over 2 years that he'd still have fully 1/3 of his inventory left. So I'd say let's just cut the guy a break. Thank you.
Okay, just for clarification again, I think I attempted this earlier. The existing bylaw allows that sign to stand for 24 months or 2 years. Is that correct? Yeah. So
the 2 years is up.
2 years is up.
So he's come back for an extension, and he's asked
understood. But what I'm saying is, though, that I would be more comfortable with another 2-year extension, because that's consistent with what the bylaw says, rather than going to an open-ended thing that goes on indefinitely, or 1 year, which, with respect to Councillor Patchy, I think is too short in my estimation. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm in favor of the amendment. We're already flexible. 1 year. It's not like we're telling them to take it down. And open-ended doesn't work for me. Bylaws are bylaws, and we're being flexible. We're granting, or possibly are granting, a variance of a year. Otherwise, you might as well get rid of the bylaw.
Just a question to staff, then. A statement, that is correct, that it's approximately $750 he'll have to pay, the applicant rather will have to pay every single year if it's renewed year by year by year?
That's right, every time he applies for a development. Every time he applies, sorry, Your Worship, every time he applies for a development variance permit, he'll have to pay the fee, submit the forms, and have his request adjudicated by council.
Well, I have a problem with that, because after 12 months goes by in an awful big hurry, I would say. I won't be supporting that one. Councillor Kipp.
Are we back, this sign back a year later already? A year's going to go quick. I think this has been a bad economy. I can't support the 1 year. I agree with the 2 year, that's what it was. I think that's flexible. Just giving them an extension to spend this much time on this sign is, I think the people are going to try and sell those places, and I don't go with the 1 year thing.
Okay, I'd like to call a question on the amendment that it be restricted to a 12-month period now. And did you want to speak to that again?
Ask that question.
Sure, go ahead.
If the permit that was originally issued for that sign expired in September of 2011, would it not be fair to say that if we're going to grant a 12-month extension, that will be over in September? We're 8 months into it already?
The extension would actually just be from the time that council authorizes it. Okay. So in effect, he's had a period of time that it's not been legal.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready, are we not, to support or not the amendment on the floor? And the amendment is for a 1 year allowance on it. Maybe do they want it read, or are you comfortable with it? Okay. On the motion, all those in favor? Sorry? The amendment. On the amendment, sorry. On the motion to amend from Councillor Badgie. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3 opposed. So we have Councillor McKay, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Johnstone, Mayor Tan, Councillor Besser, Councillor Kipp. Opposed, so the motion fails. And so now we're entertaining a new motion or another recommendation. And I would, are you on again now?
I'll make a new motion.
Okay.
We extend it for a maximum of 2 years.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Discussion on that. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor McKay. Are you? I think you're. Councillor McKay is the only one I think that's opposed. Balance Councillor Taylor. Its motion passes. So,
Your Worship.
Oh, sorry.
So now the motion is that Council direct staff to proceed with the required statutory notification for development variance permit, DVP 193 at 6728 Dickinson Road, with the proviso that it be a 2-year maximum. 2-year term. Yep.
Your Worship, just a question to staff and for clarification, that would be 2014, May 13.
Your Worship, that would, the 2 years would be from the date that council issues the permit.
Which won't be for a couple of weeks because it has to come back.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move along and into housing agreement, 3701 Country Club Drive. Staff recommendation of council received the report pertaining to a housing agreement bylaw 2012 number 7141 with Sophie Investments Incorporated regarding a 33-unit apartment development at 3701 Country Club Drive, which is presented under the bylaw section of the agenda. Moved and seconded. I see no questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're moving into item H, LA 78, Simon Holt Restaurant, patron participation entertainment. Staff recommendation that council endorse the application to permit patron participation into entertainment for an existing food primary liquor license held by Simon Holt Restaurant located at 6582 Applecross Road. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Beswick. I see no discussion. On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brennan opposed. Alone, I believe. Is that correct? The motion passes. Moving into a report of the public hearing held May 3rd, 2012 for bylaws 4500.014, 4500.017, and 7146. Staff recommendation council received the report and the minutes of the public hearing held May 3rd, 2012.
Moved to receive.
Moved to receive. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move into RA 289 at 994 Park Avenue. Staff recommendation of council 1. Receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.021, which is presented under the bylaws section of the agenda, and 2, provide direction to staff with respect to the community contribution proposal as staff considers $30,000 to be inconsistent with the similar rezoning applications, and 3, direct staff to secure the following prior to the adoption of the bylaw should council support the bylaw at third reading: A, covenant for vehicle access, building design, and B, community contribution. Moved 1, 2, and 3.
Your Worship, item number 2 is for staff is for direction, so council will have to provide something explicit. Thank you.
Okay, so let's do 1 and 3 then, if that was okay, and then we'll come back and pick up 2. Sorry? Motion to table?
Can I just speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
Just a question then to staff. The 3 indicates direct staff to secure the following prior to adoption of the bylaw should council support the bylaw at third reading, and B is the community contribution. So which to me suggests that we're not in concurrence with the amount that's stated under number 2. And that's how I would interpret 1, 2, and 3 to read.
Your Worship, that's not the way the recommendation, it wasn't intended to mean that. What we are looking for is direction on the amount of the community contribution, and then 3, once you've provided it, we would secure the amount that council directs through the use of whatever it is, covenant. So we need direction today, preferably, about whether you agree that the 30,000 is insufficient. If you believe it is sufficient, you need to tell us. If you think it's insufficient, we'd like direction on what you would consider to be sufficient.
And
is there a step recommendation for this?
Then, Your Worship, is it appropriate to make that motion amendment to that now?
In my opinion, Your Worship, it would be appropriate to make a move as part of number 2, what you consider to be the appropriate community contribution. Staff's recommendation is that the norm is $1,000 per unit, which would equate to $42,000.
I would so make that recommendation, Your Worship, to alter or adjust $30,000 to $42,000 to reflect the 42 lots that the build-out will adequately provide. So I would so make that motion.
So Mr. Wolfen saying, Mr. Holmes, just for clarification on 2, then we could make that as is that a friendly amendment? And if that is the case, then we could probably take them. We certainly don't need to do them seriatim. I think we can do 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, let's do it that way. Your Worship, that would be the direction from council. So the direction would be that council
30 to 42.
That it be $42,000 as the community contribution.
Okay.
Yes, $42,000.
And for clarification, we should vote on 2 first, then, and make sure that's approved.
Looks like the planning experts are nodding yes.
I see. Thank you for the technical response. With that said, let's qualify that then. Those members of council in favor of reading the amount of community contribution as $42,000? I got a whole raft of questions on here, so should we run through the list first and then see where we come out at the end here? Councillor Brennan. Oh, Councillor Pecci, you want to go?
No, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I not hear earlier in the day that the applicant was claiming that there were other amenities that were being given that would make up the difference between the 30,000 and the 42, the 12,000?
Your Worship, this project is at the intersection of 2 roads on Park Avenue and 9th Street. There'll be a road widening provided and works and services on those 2 frontages on public roads, so there'll be upgrades to the roadway, and the applicant feels that the improvement to the roadway should be taken into consideration when setting the amount of the community contribution.
And would staff concur with that assertion, as far as value is concerned? I mean,
in this case, the works and services would be a standard requirement of development of the site and would be a normal part of our review and requirements of a site, and is quite separate from the discussion about community contributions.
And as I said, Your Worship, the staff recommendation is that it be based on $1,000 per door per unit, which is $42,000.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
No, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Councillor Bestwick, and then Councillor...
No, Your Worship.
Councillor Kipp. Everybody happy? So, for clarity, Mr. Holmes, that we're going to be voting on 1... now we just want to make sure that there's support for 2 is at 42,000, and then move all 3?
Your Worship, that would work.
Sorry, we have a bit of a technical problem at this end here.
Your Worship, that would work to provide if that's your preference. You can do it that way.
Sure. So the motion, I believe Councillor Bestwick made the motion, and the seconder, I think we have that the amount of the community contribution be increased from 30,000 to 42,000. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. If you wish for wording, Your Worship, staff secure 42,000.
Okay.
Just for wording, and then 3 falls in line.
Okay. So the motion then is to raise the contribution to 42,000 from 30. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now we can move 1, 2, and 3 as a block. And
Your worship, number 2 is probably looked after now. I think
so we'll just do 1 and 3?
Yes.
Okay. So Councillor Bessie, did you want to do 1 and 3? You started so well with 2.
Well, we can just do item 1, Your Worship.
Item 1. Okay. So receive the report. Item 1, you're seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And now move into 3. Does someone want to move 3? Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Sort of once around the park again. Oh, 994 Park Avenue, sorry. Anyway, RA 290 at 191 Kings Road. Staff recognition that Council 1 received the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012, number 4500.022, which is presented in the bylaw section of the agenda, and 2, direct staff to secure the following prior to the adoption of the bylaw. Should Council support the bylaw at third reading: A, covenant for general design conditions, and B, community contribution. Move staff recommendation. Moved second by Councillor Brennan. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we're into RA 292 at 2375 Hayes Road. Staff recommendation that Council 1 receive the report pertaining to zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.020, which is presented in the bylaw section of the agenda, and 2, direct the applicant to remove the non-conforming rooftop sign prior to the adoption of zoning amendment bylaw.
So, Your Worship, I want to recommend that Council refer this back to staff. I believe there's been a misunderstanding between staff and the developer about the rooftop sign issue that we need to resolve, so I'd recommend that Council refer it back to staff for further discussion.
Okay, Councillor Patchy?
Both parts of the motion?
1 and 2?
Yeah, taken.
Okay, moved by Councillor Brennan. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Patchy. So the motion is refer back. All those in favor? Opposed? It's an automatic thing anyway, but we'll go through the motions. Revised Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee mandate and objectives. Staff recommendation the Council adopt the revised mandate and objectives for the Nanaimo Advisory Planning Committee, currently the Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee. Move. Second. Councillor Brennan, did you have something? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know I'm a little bit late in the day on this, but when you remove the Plan Nanaimo, or not the Plan Nanaimo, the social planning seat, I'm wondering how the committee expects to take into account the social development needs and of our overall development without someone from social planning being there.
No.
Let me do it. Let me push the button. You're on.
I'll start off, and Mr. Tucker can add anything he thinks I missed, but all the policies for the social planning issues that face this committee are contained within Plan Nanaimo, and staff would identify those as part of any development application that came forward, just like we would with any aquatic issues or any other issues that policies in Plan Nanaimo would have. If we had something that was very sensitive and very specific to a social issue, we would actually look for some assistance, whether it be from the social planner or from the committee itself. But in general, the Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee is able to deal with these through the policies in Plan Nanaimo and with staff's assistance.
So just to follow up, if I might, I get the procedure you're suggesting you'd follow, but I'm just wondering, I just want to know that you think that you are sensitive enough to those issues that you're going to catch them and be able to bring in the experts like our social planner.
Absolutely. I think that there's, quite honestly, the committee is a little bit of overkill with having representation from so many different fields that are single-minded, in fact, whereas this committee has to actually balance all of the values and needs that are found in Plan Nanaimo and make a recommendation to council. So I think it actually works better this way. In the event that there's some large issue, we would certainly look for some assistance.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Batchy.
Thank you, Worship. Similarly, when we decided to no longer include the Nanaimo Port Authority, Vancouver Island University, and the school district, that is done with the clear understanding that if something should come up that would affect any of those organizations, that they would be invited to come and speak. And those entities did not seem to have any problem with that. The only other thing I would ask staff to explain is that when this came about a month ago, we had some advice from Mr. Fuller to, instead of 3 neighborhood associations, to have 2 neighborhood associations and 1 from the neighborhood network. And just for clarity's sake, I would just like you to explain why that's no longer the case, why we're not doing that.
Your Worship, and specific to why it's not brought forward, there was no motion specific to that issue. There was a lot of discussion by Council on what to do with the neighborhood network in Mr. Fuller's presentation, but at the meeting, the only motion was to refer it back for First Nations input.
That said, though, there is an explanation in your staff report that explains why you feel that it's better that we just have 3 neighborhood associations as opposed to the other setup. And that's what I would like you to explain.
Page 183.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yes, Your Worship. The suggestion of adding the specific neighborhood network representative was felt to be that it's a loose affiliation of neighborhood associations across the city, and that the individual neighborhood representatives from the various associations were fulfilling their role on the committee, and that sometimes the communication between those associations and the network runs into the same difficulties as the cross appointments with the other committees.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I'm not entirely satisfied with the response on the social planning seat on that committee. I was looking at the neighborhood network as an interesting addition, but when I look at the mandate, the mandate actually doesn't provide for the neighborhood network representing anyone. It's more of it appears from the mandate, it's more among and between neighborhood associations, but it doesn't provide any direction for the neighborhood network to actually represent the different neighborhoods. So I accept that as a reasonable response, but still not really convinced on the social planning aspect. But if
I guess we could ask, is staff comfortable with the social aspect of it, of the change?
Yeah, I just asked them. They said they explained to me why they did it. I'll accept that, but keep an eye on it, and if it looks like maybe that piece isn't being picked up, then maybe we can look at it again.
Review it then. Okay, Councillor Kipp, are you going to have a go here? Sure.
I was concerned about that too. I understand the 3 neighborhood representatives. I thought it was going to be the neighborhood network because they're a broader spectrum and they communicate to a broader group. Because we had 3 neighborhood, and if you flip to page 85, it talks about a number of our associations, which is about 11. So my feeling was that 2 neighborhood groups with 1 representative and then the neighborhood network group would be a more appropriate, I think, public input and the ability to disseminate the plan and Nanaimo information. So can we do a friendly amendment to do that at this point?
Are we going to, let's see how friendly the amendment is here.
Yeah, well, just that we would, out of the 3 neighborhood people,
I see what you're saying.
1 would come from the neighborhood network.
Do you need more, Mr. Holmes?
Well, they would have to be up to the mover and seconder if it's a friendly amendment. Otherwise, council would need to vote on it.
The mover and seconder was?
We haven't done that yet?
We're not.
I thought it had been done, Your Worship, but I've lost track of who they were, if it happened.
Sorry? You did it?
Someone to move it and second it, I will do it. So.
Okay. And is there a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, okay.
With a friendly amendment.
That's with the friendly amendment included in it. Okay, on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Pachi opposed, Councillor Brennan opposed, balance of council in favor, the motion passes.
Was that the amendment, Your Worship?
I understood that to be a motion, the staff report with the network included.
That's what I thought.
An all-in-one motion.
Yeah. Did you not say it was a friendly motion? Well, a motion too, but...
Could we redo that, Your Worship? Could we redo that then?
I didn't, Your Worship, I didn't understand that part of it. I'm sorry. It was very confusing.
All right.
Okay. So that was a vote on the amendment, Chris? What do you think of that? Take it out of the amendment,
I believe that we were going to add the three community.
Yeah. So what we have it down, I'm not sure if this was council's intention, but it was a friendly amendment, so that was a motion on the entire motion as amended.
And do you want to read the motion as amended?
Yes, that council adopt the revised mandate and objectives for the Nanaimo Advisory Planning Committee with the addition of the Nanaimo Neighborhood Network.
Okay. I get it.
Okay.
As one of the three.
One of the three neighborhoods.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. So it's one of the three, which means that the composition remains at 13.
Yes.
Agreed.
Right. I just for clarification.
Okay, and then Councillor Brennan, did you have something?
Well, yes, I wanted to vote on the original motion as recommended by staff because I can accept that. What I'm not in support of is having the neighborhood network because it simply isn't in their mandate. This is their mandate. This is something they composed. And it doesn't include representation. So I can't imagine why we would do that, given that their own self-defined mandate doesn't include representing neighborhoods.
Okay, Councillor Brennan. I'm sorry, Councillor Pachi.
Thank you, Richard. I concur with Councillor Brennan on this. On page 185, if you have a look at the membership, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 associations that have no membership, no executive. And you know, I was going to ask that afterwards, but I'm still hoping that we are going to get a definition of what is a neighborhood association. And I understand that's happening, is it not?
Yes, Your Worship. That's certainly something on staff's mind that we'll be working with the committee on is in our community outreach, how we would actually define these neighborhood associations and work with them to establish some legitimacy for council to consider.
Okay.
But that'll take time.
How long?
Your Worship, I would anticipate it'll be into the next year to resolve this.
Well, again, you know, the reason that I would vote and that I was sympathetic to Mr. Fuller's original idea was that we would have the neighborhood network at the table, so to speak, so that information from PNAC gets disseminated and gets to the widest possible membership. But when I see 9 without a membership, then what's the use of that? I'm having a bit of a problem with it. So that said, I still concur with Councillor Brennan then.
Okay, Councillor Kip.
Well, actually, that's the interesting part. When I look on page 194, the mandate of the neighborhood network, and I look at the top purpose, and then I go down to both the catalyst and coordination, their bullet is to establish and encourage dialogue, interaction between neighborhood associations, municipal government, and other organizations. So they would hopefully encompass, and we could encourage them to encompass more of these. And then advice, information, and education, the third part of their purpose. is to act as a clearinghouse for information and facilitate communication among and between neighborhoods to facilitate education opportunities for neighborhoods. So that, to me, was getting them on board and disseminating our Plan Nanaimo information. So I thought that would, from my point of view, maybe even push them to complete their mandate and get all of our neighborhoods in their network.
How do you disseminate if you don't have the membership?
Through the email list that they have of all of the city neighborhoods is on an email list. We should vote on it.
Well, we've got Councillor Bestwick and then Councillor Brennan. Councillor Bestwick?
Thank you, Worship. I would just think that perhaps with this inclusion that it might be encouraging for the 9 neighborhood associations that are not formed as of yet, but are identified as a neighborhood association that might take the direction from the network. And in fact, I think there's a 20 on here. Is the North End Neighborhood Association not forming itself right now? The question is, I think that they are in the process of forming a neighborhood association right now. And maybe with the advent of this new position, it may encourage some consistencies. And we've had terrific results from Sika and Brecken and Departure Bay. And we've had great results, and we value their contributions and participation. So if this serves as a catalyst to get those neighborhoods that aren't up and running yet, that haven't identified themselves yet, that we would like them to act like Sika and others, then maybe this will be the motivating factor for that to take place. So I'd like to see us try that on and see what happens.
Okay, Councillor Brennan.
Yeah, I would like to say that I think that the job of anybody, any individual sitting on that committee is much greater than broadcasting information. I expect them to be able to come and speak with some sort of authority on what their membership values, what they want to see, really a kind of wide-reaching understanding of where neighborhoods want to go, way more than issuing information. That's what this lacks. If they, if the neighborhood network goes back to the drawing board and gets the assent of their membership to represent them, then welcome to Plan Nanaimo Advisory Committee. But until they have the permission of the membership to act on their behalf, I think it's really presumptuous of us to put them in that position.
So, Mr. Holmes, maybe you could clarify what the motion is. Does it reflect what you've heard now? And
Your Worship, I think where we're at right now is, and I appreciate not every council member was voting with this in mind. It's quite evident. But I think what we have right now is a motion that has been adopted by council that includes, as one of the 3 neighborhood associations, included 2 neighborhood associations and the Nanaimo Community Heritage, the
network.
The network. Thank you. So if a member of council is not pleased with that, it may be appropriate then just to test that is to introduce a motion to replace them with a one of the community associations as originally recommended, and if that gets a seconder and voted on, it'll put back council to the original recommended motion. If not, if nobody recommends that, then we'll have the
fairly lengthy way to get. What we're saying is, are you suggesting then that the motion includes the 3 at this time?
My view, Your Worship, is that council's already voted on including as one of the 3 the
yes
neighborhood network.
And that's what we're voting on now?
No. You voted on that, in my view.
Yeah, and so what are we doing now then?
Well, if council does nothing, it will have adopted the terms of reference that includes the neighborhood network.
Okay, are people comfortable with that? Yeah. Councillor Brennan, do you have anything to add? Are you happy?
No, well, I mean, I lost the vote, so
No, you're on the speaker. Okay.
No, I don't want to be on the speaker's list.
Okay, Councillor Kipp.
Well, could we in fact then bring that motion back? As someone who voted in favor, I'd like to bring that motion back to the floor right now to revote on the motion that Councillor Anderson made with the amendment to include the neighborhood network. So I would like, as one who voted in favor of that, bring that motion back to the floor for a vote right now.
Okay, is there a second to bring that one back? Seconded? Councillor Anderson, do you remember the motion that you made?
It was just the motion that says that council adopt the revised mandate and objectives for the Nanaimo Advisory Planning Committee to include a neighborhood network member.
Okay.
Instead of the...
In the 3 neighborhoods.
Yeah, 3.
So I request that we vote.
So then council would vote on whether or not to reconsider. If council pass that vote, then the motion that was previously adopted would be on the floor for debate.
So motion to reconsider.
So on the I've got 4 speakers. Does anyone want to vote now on the motion to reconsider, or do we want to go through the... Okay. On the motion to reconsider, all those in favor? Opposed?
The motion's now on the floor, Your Worship.
Okay, and Councillor McKay opposed, balance of council in favor, that passes. So now the motion's on the floor, and this is Councillor Anderson's motion, I believe. So, do we need to have it read, or is everyone happy with it now? Question. All those in... Okay. Just a minute. Councillor Greaves, we have Councillor Kipp, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Patchy, Councillor Johnson. You're off. Councillor Patchy.
Okay, so we are now voting on the membership of 2 neighborhood associations and 1 neighborhood network. All right, I'm going to vote in favor for that now, but only because I now have heard from staff that it will take more than a year to come up with a definition of what is a proper neighborhood association, and that's too long a time for me to exclude those 9 associations that have no membership, no executive, no dues, no nothing, much as it pains me to say.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Well, is that in fact true? Is there no membership in this organization? They meet quarterly. How could they meet without a membership?
Your Worship, my comment was it'll take into the new year to actually establish some criteria that council could consider to define what a neighborhood association is, how they act, how their reporting's done, how their membership is registered. That takes a lot of time, given that there's 19 of them and many of them are represented by no one that we understand. The Neighborhood Network is not an organization that I have any idea how they're organized in terms of their membership, their society, their reporting, how they answer to the other neighborhood. I have no idea. So that's a big task to take these associations and try and define them, and then to monitor them and actually act as some sort of policing agent to ensure that they're up to date every year is a big job. It's not something that can be done very quickly.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is Councillor Anderson's motion, and I think we've discussed it rather extensively. So we'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brennan and Councillor Greaves opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes. Okay, so we're moving into item O, Property Maintenance Bylaw 1990, number 3704. It's requested that council hear... what's that? I'm sorry. Thank you very much. It's OCP General Amendments. Sorry, I skipped a line. Staff recommendation that council receive the report pertaining to Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 6500.017, which is presented in the bylaws section of the agenda. The PNAC recommendations that council consider approving the proposed general amendments to the City of Nanaimo Official Community Plan Bylaw 2008, number 6500. Move. Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So move into property maintenance bylaw. It's requested that council herein wishing to speak with respect to property maintenance at the properties listed below. Staff recommendation of council pursuant to property maintenance bylaw 1990 number 3704 direct the owners of the following properties to remove the material listed below from the premises within 14 days. The work will be done by the city or its agents at the owner's cost. The first property is 307/309 5th Street. Washers, dryers, a stove, travel trailer, 3 unlicensed vehicles, 2 boat trailers, and miscellaneous debris. Is there anyone in attendance here that would like to speak to matters related to 307/309 5th Street? And the second and final item in this category is 550 Brecken Road, overgrown blackberry bushes. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 550 Brecken Road? Seeing none, if somebody would like to move the recommendation by
Staff recommendation.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to unresolved building deficiencies, notice on title, section 5.7. It's requested the council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to unresolved building deficiencies or illegal suites for the properties listed below, and the staff recommendation of council by resolution instruct the manager of legislative services to file a bylaw contravention notice respecting the properties listed below at the Land Title and Survey Authority of British Columbia under Section 5.7 of the Community Charter. The first property is 641 5th Street, illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 641 1st Street? The second item is 422 Wharton Street. The illegal construction, finished basement to include a secondary suite, and convert carport to living space. Is there anyone here in attendance that would like to speak to matters related to 422 Wharton Street? And the third one is 781 Southland Way, incomplete building permit, construct single-family dwelling. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak to matters related to 781 Southland Way? Seeing none, if somebody would like to move the staff recommendation. Move all 3 then. 1, 2, and 3. Move and second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Corporate services, Q Regional District of Nanaimo Drinking Water and Watershed Protection Service Amendment Bylaw 1556.02, 2012. Staff recommendation that council waive the consent requirements under Section 801.4 of the Local Government Act by consenting to the adoption of the Regional District of Nanaimo Drinking Water and Watershed Protection Service Amendment Bylaw 1556.02, 2012, and that the Regional District of Nanaimo be notified accordingly. Moved by Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Anderson. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move into promotion of community services, promotion of municipal tap water. Staff recommendation of council endorse the implementation plan to transition from selling bottled water to promoting and using municipal tap water in Nanaimo City parks, recreation, and culture facilities.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a different motion, and that council rescind motion 24612 made on Monday, March 26, 2012, and direct staff to report on the implications of the 3 resolutions in order to become a blue community, and the full costs regarding banning bottled water in city facilities and at public events, such as the cost of upgrading facilities with drinking water stations. And may I speak to it? Sure. The reason that I brought this motion forward is because at the March 26th meeting that we had, it was moved and seconded that council designate Nanaimo as a blue community and direct staff to provide a report on the implications of banning the sale of bottled water in city facilities and at public events. And I don't believe council was all that sure that they voted on designating Nanaimo as a blue community, because the motions that went through, that wasn't very clear as to how and what was happening at that time. And when I made the motion, I wanted a motion on banning the sales of bottled water and so on. Instead, we, as you can read in the report, it says on page 210 to 11 that council passed a motion to designate Nanaimo as a blue community. And I can tell you that I did not vote in favor of designating Nanaimo as a blue community. At that time, I wanted the ability to read over the materials that were given by the Council of Canadians group that came to present to Council as to what it means to become a blue community. And I received that information package after they finished speaking to Council. And I think that the rest of my colleagues will also agree with me that we thought that we were voting on a report saying what the implications were, and not that we wanted to become a blue community at that time. So I hope that Council will support the motion that I made and rescinding this motion at this time and bringing back a report on what was actually asked for.
Your Worship, if I could just ask for clarification, is that motion 24512? Because 24612 was actually defeated.
Okay, well
24512 is the one that reads, "It was moved and seconded that Council designate Nanaimo as a blue community."
Well, then 24512.
Thank
you. With the added amendment.
Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder?
Yes, Diana, or Councillor Johnstone did.
Now, just for staff, I mean, is it easier just to refer this back, or do you want to, is it expeditious to go ahead and just vote on it now?
Your Worship, it's a motion to repeal a previous motion, and so I think it's perfectly in order for Council to debate this and vote on it tonight.
Okay, so the motion would be then to repeal the earlier one?
Mr. Chair, my motion did also include having the staff report as well attached to that rescinding. So, or would you like me to rescind it and then make a new motion after, if that's easier for you?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the after you said my motion includes.
Okay, sorry. I'll say it again. Would it be easier for staff if I made the motion to rescind motion 24512, and then after, whether Council agrees to that, make the motion for the report that I've asked for?
Yes.
Okay, well then I will withdraw my initial motion and remake the motion to that Council rescind motion 24512 made on Monday, March 26, 2012.
That has captured that. Yep.
Which is what?
And amended, and the amendment there too.
What is it?
If I may, I've got the minutes open up here on the computer. So 24512, it was moved and seconded that Council designated Nanaimo as a blue community. Then 24612, it was moved and seconded that Council defer the issue of designating Nanaimo as a blue community to the next public meeting of Council. That motion was defeated. Okay? And then 24712, it was moved and seconded that the main motion be amended to direct staff to provide a report on the implication of banning the sale of bottled water in the city facilities and at public events. That motion carried.
And is it okay if I just follow up to this? Is that when the two motions can't work together, and that we're saying we want to designate Nanaimo as a blue community, and then to also say we want to report on the implications of banning the sale of bottled water in city facilities. It doesn't really make sense. I spoke to the manager of legislative services prior to our meeting today in regards to it, because if you also look then on page 210, it says that Council voted in favor of becoming a blue community, which I didn't vote in favor of at that time, and I don't think any of us, well, I don't know what the other members of Council think, but from the ones that I've spoken to, they didn't vote for a blue community at that time. So that is why I'm asking that we rescind the motions that we made, which I guess if you put them together is 24512 and 24712.
That's my point.
Yes, so that's what it would be. Those two motions are the ones that I would like to have removed.
Reconsidered?
Or no, I would like us to rescind it so that we can then
vote on the new.
Have the motion that we initially all wanted on March 26.
But just to have a report.
Yes.
Is staff comfortable with where we are?
Yes, Your Worship. My understanding of the motion that's on the table right now is that motions 24512 and 24712, which were adopted together, be rescinded.
That's correct. Okay, so let's deal with that one first, unless there's any further questions on that, on the motion to rescind. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brennan and Councillor Kipp opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion to rescind passes.
And may I make a new motion?
You may.
That Council directs staff to report on the implications of the 3 resolutions required to become a blue community and the full cost regarding banning bottled water in city facilities and at public events, such as the cost to upgrade facilities with drinking water stations.
It's the banning the sale of.
Yes, banning the sale.
Because banning
the
bottled
sale.
water is a bit different.
Banning the sale of bottled water in city facilities. Did you catch the entire motion, or would you like me to repeat it for you? Okay.
Repeat it, please. Thank you.
Okay. That council directs staff to report on the implications of the 3 resolutions required to become a blue community and the full costs regarding banning the sale of bottled water in city facilities and at public events, such as the cost to upgrade facilities with drinking water stations. If that's specific enough.
They used to be called motion.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it. Okay.
Okay, is everybody comfortable with the motion? Now, we've got Councillor Kipp, you have nothing to add to it, have you? Councillor Brennan, do you have something you want to add?
Well, I want to ask a question. Sure. The blue community included 3 resolutions. Now, I can't recall what the first one was.
Recognizing water as a human right. Promoting publicly financed, owned, and operated water and wastewater services, and banning the sale of bottled water in public facilities at municipal events.
Right. Okay, so I'm not sure that I need a report on whether water is a human right. In fact, I know I don't. So I really can't support that. I really think that's a waste of staff's time to enter into some sort of discussion and written report about whether water is a human right. We have already, in our policy, endorsed the concept that we want to keep our water supply public. So not sure why we would need more of that. So really all we're looking for, the only information we don't have is the cost of banning the sale, and in fact we have a report in front of us now. I really don't think that this is a good use of staff's time. Let's just, sort of pull ourselves together and decide whether we think water is a human right, whether we think water should remain in public hands, and whether we think that the cost of removing it from municipal buildings and functions is a good idea. Let's just do that. Instead of shuffling everything back to staff to tell us whether the access to clean, safe drinking water is a human right. Let's just do this.
Okay, let's just, we've got a bunch more speakers. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Worship. If I'm not mistaken, and if perhaps I misunderstood the motion that
Councillor Anderson
was just Councillor Anderson just put forward, but the staff has done a report, and it does say that we're going to lose $8,500 approximately potential revenue, and $5,000 is going to be required for education and infrastructure program. So that's it. So I don't know why we need staff. Now, it's not that I'm for or against the original motion, don't get me wrong, but this I think we've got all the information in front of us as to whether we have to do any more research.
Okay. We have Councillor Anderson. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I do want to say something.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I asked for the report, which I thought I was going to get on March 26th, but I guess there was some issues in the way the motions were made was one that the report does say that there's an associated loss of $8,500, but that does not include upgrading facilities in the city to have more available water fountains and so on. So that is an additional cost which is not in this report. Yes, that says $5,000 for the education plan. It doesn't say that if we need to, well, perhaps I'll ask staff, and that does that mean that it's going to cost $5,000 in every single facility in Nanaimo to put in water fountains and so on and make it more accessible?
Mayor Ratan, to answer Councillor Anderson's question, that $5,000 does include upgrade to fountains and facilities and a couple of parks, but not every park, not small community parks, if that is your intent. No, it is really for an upgrade of fountains. We have fountains in our facilities now. We'd upgrade those, and there are some parks where we'd improve the fountain or access to water through fountains.
Well, when I read it, I considered it to be the education plan. That's also, but anyways, okay, well, thank you for answering that. I do have another question as well, is how long would it take to develop the education plan?
We were expecting to have that ready for September.
And also in the staff report, and just a follow-up as well, in the staff report it discussed bringing water from far away places and so on. Was there any consideration given to local companies as opposed to what was written in the staff report?
No.
Okay.
And we say that the vending machines are supplied by Pepsi, and Pepsi has their brand of water that they stock in the vending machines.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. Relative to the three items that are on the resolution to declaring Nanaimo a blue community, I had some challenges with it right from the beginning. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that water is a human right. But my question from staff is I would like them to investigate us declaring that to be a fact, what implications we might face in the future by doing so. BC Human Rights Tribunal and other agencies like for example, the Canadian Transportation Agency, they've gone to great lengths to determine what responsibilities municipal governments and other governments and private operators have relative to when they have discretionary spending of millions of dollars. And we might not like some of the implications of that public declaration. I just want to know that we're making a decision with our eyes wide open.
Point of order. So let's speak to the motion. You're speaking to the other 1, 2, and 3. I'm sorry.
I'm speaking in favor of.
Well, that speaks to my motion, and that I'm talking about 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Sorry.
Number 2 is the issue of the public ownership of our water facilities. It was not until just recently that I learned, and I don't know how many people, members of the public, know that we don't own our watershed. And what would that cost to bring that into public hands? And would, by passing this resolution, preclude us from continuing negotiations with Harmac on something that might be quite beneficial to the community relative to water supply? And number 3, there are other options available. I was doing some research today. There's a company in Vancouver called Safe Star Products. They've got some wonderful innovations, and they seem to be leading edge with other communities, particularly in the Lower Mainland and British Columbia, and institutions like universities and schools and whatnot, with new dispensing machines that Ms. Ross talked about, where there are other revenue opportunities to replace the revenue opportunities lost. I'd like to see some more information on those before we have a vote on this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. Boy, this is going on and on. I would just like to ask a question of staff. When we make reference to the $8,500 loss in revenue as a result of not selling water, that doesn't account for increase in sales in other beverage products. It's just simply identifying the amount of money that has been generated from bottled water sales, which assumedly other areas will likely be picked up, and God forbid they'll buy pop.
Your Worship, that's correct. This just takes into account the bulk sale of water revenue loss.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to see more in a staff report. Actually, I have some very serious concerns about over-regulating or over-legislating public events. I'm thinking particularly of large events such as the Dragon Boat Festival, and how we as bureaucrats or elected officials can legally deny members of a Dragon Boat team not to use bottled water when they're attending their events. I'm not sure we have the answers to those questions, and I'd be very concerned to pass a motion like this without knowing whether we in fact can make that kind of regulation. I'm not sure whether staff has had an opportunity to speak with the event organizers to see how they feel about this, and I'm sure it's a revenue opportunity for those event organizers as well.
Your Worship, what we addressed in the implementation plan was actually looking at working with the special event organizations, not as far as banning the sale of bottled water, but to work with them as well as far as promoting municipal tap water at their events, and recognizing that in order to have a ban on it, we need to be, exactly as Councillor Johnston has indicated, enforcing it and monitoring it, which, really at this point in time, we're not in a position to do. So we'd be recommending that we work with the groups to promote drinking of municipal tap water, but not banning it at those large-scale special events, focusing only on city-offered smaller special events.
Thank you.
But, therein lies a bit of a problem, because what do you decide is a small event against a large event? And if, using the example someone gave of a Dragon Boat team coming, if a sponsor for them or for more than one is a bottled water supplier, and they've got cases and cases of it when they arrive, we're certainly not going to insist that they put them away or get rid of them. So, it's the old story again about trying to enforce a bylaw. Again, if it's not easily enforceable, should we have it in the first place?
Your Worship, sorry, just to maybe clarify, we'd be looking at just city-ran special events in that case, not necessarily events such as Canada Day, which brings in the same amount of vendors as maybe Dragon Boat, but if we're offering a smaller scale city-offered special event, that would definitely be our intent, just like we do with meetings right now where we have either the bottled water or the large coolers of water.
Okay, thank you. All right, I see no further questions on this thing. Now, do we want to have a go at the motion here, or we've got to... Are you going to do this? Okay.
She needs me to read it again.
Maybe I'll just watch their heads to make sure they nod as you speak here.
If I can. That council directs staff to prepare a report on the implications of the 3 resolutions required to become a blue community and the full cost regarding banning bottled water and banning the sale of bottled water in city facilities and at public events be recorded, something like that.
And upgrading facilities to provide drinking water stations.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the motion on the floor has just been read to you. Question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brennan and Councillor Greaves opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes. And we now move into approval of RFP 1283, City of Nanaimo Electrical Services, contract rather. Staff recommendation of council direct staff to proceed with issuing a purchase order for RFP 1283, City of Nanaimo Electrical Services contract to Shaw Electrical Services Limited.
Personal relationship with this person.
Okay, thank you.
Second the recommendation.
Moved and seconded, and we're showing that Councillor Greaves has absented himself on a perceived conflict or on a conflict of interest. Freeze. So on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome. Now we're going to move into reconsideration of bylaws. We move by Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. I move that zoning amendment bylaw 25 under 4500.014 ZA1-51 general amendments to create a new subzone R1B which applies to R1 zone properties within the Old City neighbourhood pass third reading.
Seconder? Moved and seconded. Question? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't be supporting this. That delegation came to us a month or two ago showing dilapidated buildings and so on, and talking about how those are going to be in their neighborhood in regards to duplexes, and reading over some of the submissions that there were 18 in favor, and there's members of the entire community who are saying that this is not a good thing to do. On page 29 of the official community plan, it states that Plan Nanaimo supports new forms of higher density residential development within the UCB and in defined urban nodes and corridors. Then it goes on to say the regional growth strategy number 2 encourages mixed-use communities for focusing higher density residential uses in nodes and corridors. And then you go to page 46, to encourage higher residential densities. Page 59 of the OCP, policies number 2, development in neighborhoods will be characterized by a mix of low-density residential uses and may include detached and semi-detached dwelling units, secondary suites, special needs housing, mobile homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, or quadruple plexes, and townhomes residential densities from 10 to 50 units per hectare. And for me, I think this is voting against the OCP. Council voted in favor of this. It came back, and the delegation said, I'm still not happy with this. And this is one person who came back and said, I'm not happy with something. And I think that's not true leadership, to change a decision when one individual has said that this isn't what they want. So I would rather see a design review process or something else, not flat out saying, well, we're not going to have duplexes on corner lots. And I think this is a time where council can be bold and resilient and continue to stay with what the OCP has stated, and that we need a higher density and that to allow duplexes and so on in our city. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
I'd like to speak to that.
Oh, you are, but not right now. But, the next speaker is Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Worship. I cannot support this amendment as well, just for one reason. The bylaw, zoning bylaw 4500, R1, R1A, allowed duplexes or duplex development on certain corner lots if the lot area was 700 square meters to 1,000 square meters. This amendment removes that, but it does and allows a single-family residence on a minimum lot size of 500 square meters. So instead of a duplex, you can have 2 single-family residences. So it's a saw-off. And you can have, instead of a duplex, you can have a single-family residence with a suite. So I see no difference whatsoever. So I don't like the idea of removing the duplexes, so I won't be supporting this amendment.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Worship. There's been a lot of back and forth on this one here, and I know that we're probably driving staff wild right about now, but the OCP does suggest that we want to see greater density, particularly close to the downtown core, and I'm in favor of that. We've also looked at some of what is possible. I'm not saying that some of the developments that have gone on in that neighborhood haven't been not so good, and some of them are bad. I would like to suggest that there was a suggestion made at the public hearing relative to a design review committee for form and character. That we stick with the OCP, we allow we standardize across the community, but in that neighborhood, the neighborhood would have the ability to determine a development by form and character. And I think that's I believe that's a more positive way to approach this.
Okay, Councillor Patchy.
Thank you, Worship. Someone may call back and forth. I call flip-flopping, and this will be the third time if this gets defeated. I'm not in favor of that. That's not showing leadership either. The whole thing seems to hinge on the fact that there are 16 lots in this old city quarter that would not be able to build duplexes. They would have single-family homes with secondary suites. So as far as density is concerned, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. That said, there is only one old city quarter that we have in this city, and I know the OCP as well as Councillor Anderson, and I came to the conclusion the very first time around that it is not always advisable to use a cookie-cutter kind of mode for the whole city. That doesn't work for me, and that is what being attempted to do here. And so again, I'm in favor of this. I think it is reasonable. Where it comes to the other two issues, the lot size of 500 square meters, I think that's very much acceptable to me. And I have seen some examples as far as accessory buildings for secondary suites are concerned with the height of 7 meters, and they're pretty darn awful. I've seen two on McCleary Street where the accessory building is larger than the original house, and that just cannot be the intent of what we're trying to do here. So, that's about the only emphasis I can give on it. I don't think every part of the city is the same. I think we should value our heritage and we should build on it. And if there comes a time that Nanaimo is full, then we can talk about it again. But no, 16 lots is what seems to be the argument between saying yes or no, and that is not good enough for me. I'll be supporting it.
You'll be supporting it, Jim? Sorry? You said I'll be supporting it? I couldn't hear the last one.
No, I'll be supporting this zoning amendment bylaw.
Okay, I just had a little bit of background noise here. I'm having some trouble here. Councillor Brennan.
I won't be supporting this. I've been consistent since I arrived here and in the times that this has come before us. I too value the heritage in the old city quarter. It's a beautiful part of town. It's not something we want to lose. But I think that the best way to do that is through form and character design review. And so I think that there have been, an attempt to deal with it by a sort of overall strategy here. I would like to see the design committee deal with each application. So I can't support this.
Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. I will be supporting the zoning amendment bylaw as it's presented. I didn't anticipate that we would have this discussion tonight. I think that we've gone through many opportunities for the community, Old City Quarter developers, realtors, real estate people, people of interest, stakeholders, to come before us to discuss this, and we have arrived at this amendment, and I think that we should maintain this this direction that we're on, and form and character is always something that will be taken into consideration. I don't think that there was just one member of the community that spoke to this issue. I think that there may have been one major proponent that spoke on behalf of many, many people, but respecting the time and respecting the process, that there was only a few or several, not a singular. So I'll be supporting the bylaw that we have in front of us that staff has prepared.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. While attending the open house on this issue, I spoke to great number of people from the community, and it was very clear to me that this was one issue that they wanted to retain. They did not want duplexes on quarter lots. And if I can recall, it's fewer than 16, is it not? Is it 12? Yeah. It's 12, or is it 16? 12 corner lots.
Your Worship, I believe Councillor Padgett right that it is 16
quarter lots.
And I should just clarify, currently we do not do design reviews for duplexes, so that would have to be an amendment we'd make and add that to the system if you would like form a character reviews of duplexes.
And I absolutely agree that I'd like to see the Old City Quarter be retained as our heritage area for our city and stay with the community, the people that live in the area.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions to staff. One is if we were to allow duplexes on corner lots, does it mean that a duplex would actually be built on a corner lot? Or it has to have a duplex on the corner lot?
No, it does not. It would be up to the property owner to decide. The permitted uses would be either a single-family dwelling or duplex for that under the zone, and then it would be up to the property owner. The other point being that most of these, in fact, I'll stick with most of these, are already occupied by dwelling units.
And the second question that I have is, are the size and mass of the buildings controlled already in some other manner through bylaws or something else in the Old City Quarter? Or the size of the buildings, the carriage houses, those type of things?
The R1 zone contains the usual array of setbacks, front yard setback, side yard setback, rear yard, which establishes your building envelope. There's also lot coverage provisions in the R1 zone. So the mass of the building is controlled by those factors, and then, of course, building height.
Mm-hmm. So from the answers that I've got, the size of the masses are already controlled. It doesn't even mean that there will be duplexes built on those corner lots. So I don't see why we're taking the opportunity to actually allow for that to happen. The OCP, it happened in 2008. I think in 2008 they could have said, we don't want duplexes on corner lots then. I think the opportunity was missed then, and I think that we need to move forward with this, and I can't support it the way that it is, and I think that council should show leadership, and that one person isn't enough to change council's mind.
Okay, Councillor, someone disappeared on me. I had one more name and it's gone now. So I think we're ready to vote on this thing. So question on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor Greaves, Councillor Brennan, Councillor Anderson, and Councillor McKay opposed. Balance of council. Are you? You're in favor? Yeah. Yep. So the motion passes. Carries. Okay. Okay, moving into zoning amendment bylaw 2012, number 4500.
It's my turn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2012, number 4500.017, to permit the temporary use of containers as an accessory use in select zones pass third reading.
Seconder? Seconded. Now, we have Councillor Graves, did you have something? Yes. And let me just move you along. Okay.
I agree with everything in this bylaw, except the, I don't know where this comes from. There weren't that many people speaking against this, having containers on industrial properties. And I must admit that I've taken a look at a lot of properties and seen if they look ugly or are a problem. I can understand the reason for using them because they're very secure, especially with this time of thieves robbing copper and so on and so forth, and tools and equipment. And I don't think it's a problem in industrial areas. And I would like to see that industrial areas I-1, I-2, I-3, and I-4 remain permanent and not be temporary. Everything else would be the same. All the other regulation would be the same. A lot of these things are very unobtrusive, and I was surprised when I started looking that I could actually find a few of them, but I don't have a problem with them, so I won't be voting in favor.
Okay, the motion still stays temporary, though, as opposed to permanent. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. I will be voting in favor of this, and I'm just hopeful that we will enforce, as we understand, the number of containers permitted on the properties, and we will be proactive in our enforcement as opposed to reactive to complaints generated from the community. So in some measure, I would like to see us be more enforcement oriented, driven from our city versus complaints registered from the community.
Councillor McKay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've had some difficulties with this one as well, and I heard Mr. Taylor when he talked about folks that put multiple containers on their property to avoid building a building, to escape not only the building costs but also the taxation. I get that. So I would prefer to see something where some sort of permitted revenue stream be brought into effect. I have some concerns for companies who like to use these containers, one or two on their property, for the purpose of storage. In fact, we do so ourselves at the Public Works Yard. There's also the issue of security and fireproof and so on and so forth of these units when it comes to emergency kiosks. 2 blocks from my home is Forest Park Elementary. They have one out the back. It's got all the emergency supplies in it. So I'm having some trouble understanding why we would consider them useful to some people and permitted, and not useful to others and not permitted. I'm having difficulty with it. I'd like to see some sort of permanent solution to this, whereby folks, for security reasons and for emergency kiosks, could be permitted them, limit of number per units, don't want them in residential areas, but I think we need to go back to the drawing boards on this, so I can't support it as written.
Okay, Councillor Johnstone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly, I think the main reason for me is it's a deterrent for crime. I can't imagine not allowing containers to lock up supplies, tools, and lumber, etc. So for that reason alone, I think it's important that we permit the use of temporary use of storage containers.
Okay, and for my part, I agree. Again, it's a temporary use. I would have a lot of problems with a permanent encouragement to have containers, but on a temporary basis, and for construction in particular, I would support it. So, question on the motion. Councillor Anderson, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to be voting in favor of this either. It says temporary, but temporary could be forever. If you look at the corporation that Mr. Taylor's talked about, it's been sitting there for how long? We've said that we're going to move buses and so on from people's properties, and those are still sitting there. So I don't know what temporary means, in that temporary could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. It says that, but is someone actually going to tell the company to remove those containers? After 2 years, yes?
Your Worship, I probably should comment because Councillor Bestwick made a similar comment about staff being proactive. What I think is important for Council to know is that without direction from Council to be proactive, we will not be cruising the streets looking for these. So the answer is that without complaints generally, we won't be taking enforcement action unless Council directs that we should do that and provides the resources to do so.
So if Council doesn't direct staff to, in essence, those containers could sit there for 20 years.
If there's no complaint, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Greaves.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make an amendment to this. that zones I-4 are allowed 2 containers permanently, and zones I-1, I-2, and I-3 are allowed 1 container permanently, and the rest of the writing regulations and so forth for the rest of the zones remain the same.
I'll second.
Your Worship, the appropriate thing to do in this case would be to defeat this motion, put a new bylaw or put a new motion on the floor. We would bring back a bylaw and go through the process again.
Okay, and I take that as good advice. So you're still reading these, aren't you, Councillor Patchy? So I think what we should do, the motion on the floor actually would be to defeat the motion and then refer it back, we could refer back or entertain a new motion, one or the other.
Your Worship, it has to start again because it would require a substantive change like that would require a new public hearing.
Okay, so
council should consider this bylaw on its merits, and after that, deal with whatever happens.
So, I'm not sure, just for clarification, you're suggesting that we not defeat this, are you saying?
No. Well, I don't want to presume how council wishes to vote.
No, but I'm asking you a question.
I know some members of council support it and some don't.
Yeah.
If it is defeated, it needs to go, and if an alternate direction is provided, as consistent with what Councillor Greaves said, a new bylaw would be prepared and it would go back to public hearing. If it's passed, then we'll proceed on the current course.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? We have Councillor McKay, Mayor Rattan, Councillor Greaves opposed, the balance of Councillor in favor, so the motion passes.
Shall we continue?
Yes, please.
Move that Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 2012.
Number 7060.02, general text amendments and amendments to meeting procedures be adopted.
Your Worship,
yep.
May I just for clarification, on that last vote, may I just ask for clarification on what we just asked?
Your Worship, council voted on the bylaw at third reading as set out in item B there.
Correct.
And I have myself marked as opposed to that as well.
Oh, wait a second.
No, it's done.
How did you vote?
Well, I mean that I didn't want to vote in favor of it, and I didn't understand what the motion was on the floor because there was a discussion that we were going to go with Councillor Greaves' motion and back and forth. So
We have Councillor Anderson in favor right now, but I think it's...
Well, then I would like to be not in favor. Thank you.
Opposed.
It still passes.
Yeah.
But
that's what I was going to say.
But
if there's only one vote changing, nothing changes. We need more than one.
Shall I go on?
Please.
I move that Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 7144.01, to amend the 2012-2016 financial plan be adopted.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor opposed, balance councillor in favor, balance of council rather in favor. The motion passes.
Okay. Move that Land Use Contract Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 7146, RA 279, to amend the land use contract for the Westwood Tennis Club at 2367 Arbor Road, pass third reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Yes.
I'm somewhat confused. I thought that we had a long discussion about the zoning amendment, the temporary use of the containers. And then the next motion I thought we discussed was the general text amendments. Or did we skip that one?
Your Worship, I believe that was skipped, and the staff are going to recommend to the mayor that it come back after the completion of this section. because it was skipped.
Okay.
Council
All
went
right.
directly to D and missed over C.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I know. For clarification, I believe it was Councillor Patchy that skipped it.
Did I?
No, I don't know. It doesn't matter anyway. But everyone's looking at me, and I thought, hey, wait a minute.
Shall I continue?
Please.
I move that Land Use Contract Amendment Bylaw 2012, number 7146, be adopted.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that Tax Rates Bylaw 2012, number 7147, to fix the tax rates on real property in the City of Nanaimo and to provide for the payment of taxes for the 2012 year be adopted.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed? Councillor Kipp opposed. Balance council in favor. The motion passes.
I move the Delegation of Council Powers Bylaw 2012, number 7148, to delegate the executive and administrative powers of Council to the Committee of the Whole be adopted.
Second. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Introductions of bylaws?
Your Worship.
Oh, well, let's go back now, and we'll do D, if you wouldn't mind, please. C, I beg your pardon. Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 2012.
That zoning amendment bylaw 2012, number 4500.017.
No, C, the next one
C,
down.
okay. That council procedure amendment bylaw 2012, number 7060.02. General text amendments and amendments to meeting procedures be adopted. Did that.
Second. Okay, I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed?
It's the second time.
Motion carries. We'll move down into introduction of bylaws. Okay. 14A, please.
I move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2012, number 7141, DP 736, to authorize the Mayor and the Manager of Legislative Services to enter into a housing agreement for 3701 Country Club Drive, pass first reading.
Second. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion
Move
carries.
that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2012, number 7141, pass second reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2012, number 7141, pass third reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, then 15A is off, right?
Yes, I believe that's. Is that correct, Mr. Holmes? 15A1 is gone.
It's gone. Okay.
Wish to speak, Your Worship?
Well, all of 15, actually. Sorry.
Request to speak?
Sorry, yeah.
I just want to ask staff on this one here, based on our schedule, will it make it back to next open council meeting? Do we have any idea?
No, the next council meeting is May 28th, and I believe the public hearing is June the 5th, so no, it wouldn't meet the time. I believe that those are the dates. So the answer is no.
So it wouldn't be able to be heard at the next public hearing?
No, it would go to July.
Procedurally, is it possible to strike, to amend the motion? In other words, there were two parts to it, 1 and 2. If we struck 2 for our consideration tonight.
Sarah Adam?
Yes.
The one to receive and move and hold and sign?
This was referred to.
Your Worship. God, this is Your Worship.
As part of our report at the next council meeting, we can look at special public hearing dates if council prefers to have a public hearing in June. We can look and see if that's available for council.
Okay.
For one item. I'm concerned that we won't vote in favor of a public hearing for one item. So I'm concerned about it being delayed another month. Is there a fix?
That's the course we're on. It'll be delayed
until July.
Okay.
I mean, have you been in contact with the proponent to say it's being pulled to clarify the misunderstanding?
The proponents here tonight and was aware at the beginning of the meeting that this was an issue that needed to be resolved. Yes.
Oh, so the proponent could have come and spoken on his own behalf at the beginning of the meeting?
There was no opportunity probably that they saw to actually address council.
Things on the agenda? Anyway, it doesn't sound like the proponent is overly, or is concerned as us, I suppose.
It's not here.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Now, are we...
What is?
Well, I don't know. I thought, did you not do 15A? We're going to do Syrianum, I thought. So that means 15A1. Is that not correct, Mr. Holmes?
The whole is have to deal with A or any other part of it, 1 and 2. So you just move on to item B.
Okay, B1.
I move that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.2021 RA 289 to rezone 994 Park Avenue from single residential dwelling R1 to single residential dwelling small lot R2 to permit a 45 lot subdivision pass first reading.
Second. I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.021 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Move that zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.022 RA 290 to rezone 191 King Road from single residential dwelling R1 to a split of single residential dwelling small lot R2 and duplex residential R4 to permit subdivision of the land past first reading.
Moved and seconded. No discussion. All those in favor? Opposed?
The zoning amendment bylaw 2012 number 4500.022 pass second reading.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
I move that official community plan amendment bylaw 2012 number 6500.017 OCP 67 general text and map amendments to maintain the effectiveness and accuracy of the bylaw pass first reading.
Second. Okay. That I see no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And that official community plan amendment bylaw 2012 number 6500.017 pass second reading.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving into correspondence. If someone would like to move the correspondence, move receipt. Moved and seconded. Councillor Anderson and Councillor Johnston. All those in favor? Opposed? Any business arising?
Yep. On D, I don't know if this is possible, but I would like to make a motion that that if I can find my spot here, that a resolution. Sorry, the smoking bylaw to further efforts to reduce tobacco use and reduce exposures to secondhand smoke be forwarded to the Union of British Columbian Municipalities that call upon the province to implement similar / more stringent provisions to the Tobacco Control Act. Did you get that?
Okay, so just for clarification, you want a letter written on that? Is that?
Your Worship, I did hear it, but the challenge that I'm having is that the medical health officer is asking you to amend the city smoking bylaw and then to consider forwarding and supporting resolutions to UBCM that call upon more stringent provisions.
That's your intent?
Well, then I'll change my motion to have council amend the smoking bylaw to further reduce tobacco use and reduce exposures to secondhand smoke.
So, Your Worship, what I'd recommend in that case is that if you want to make more restrictions on smoking, that you might want to refer it for further consideration, perhaps a staff report, because there's implications in terms of how far from exits people are allowed to smoke, and that probably should come back so council has that information.
Okay, well then add staff report in there somewhere.
Well, do you want to make a motion to refer back to staff? Or?
Yes, let's just refer the entire letter back to staff and have them report to council.
Okay, is there a seconder? I guess not. Okay, well, maybe not. And so, all righty. Well, then we're back on there on Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you, Worship. On item E, I would just like to refer to staff to come back with a report on the implications of providing EADs in public facilities and private facilities, specifically speaking to cost implications for each of those facilities to be equipped.
The green one? Where's your green one?
If you need any more information on that, I'm happy to try to provide that.
So just to be clear, so that we understand the motion, what I'm hearing Councillor Bestwick say is you'd like a report on the cost and implications of requiring private sports and fitness centers to be required to include or be equipped with electronic automatic defibrillators?
Private and public. So I'm sensing that we may not have EADs in all of our public facilities that have sports or combat activities or otherwise taking place, or highly strenuous activities. For example, I think in the Port Theatre there was a recent MMA event, and I don't know if on a temporary basis for events such as that, and or any event when people are getting really excited about nearly Neil Diamond or something performing there, that they may need something to calm them. But
I might have to mention that to Neil. Is there any thoughts on that? First of all, is there an issue with any of the public facilities not having IDs now? I thought most of them have.
The city generally have them, but as Councillor Bestwick has said, I'm not sure about agencies or facilities that may be funded by the city in some way. He used the example of the Port Theatre. I don't know whether the Port Theatre has them or not, and I imagine there's other like facilities, so we'd have to do some research to find out what the status is.
And just to follow up, I mean, are we aware of other communities that are imposing this on, or passing a bylaw, maybe that sounds nicer, to require private institutions to have an EAD device?
No, I'm not aware of what other communities are doing. I don't believe it's a widespread requirement in other communities, but that would be the research we'd do in the report.
Okay.
Those are AEDs. They're not. Shouldn't it be AED? Yeah. It's not what they got there, EAD.
Acronyms.
Well, maybe something different. Corex could throw something different.
Okay, we're moving down into, so I don't think there's any action taken on any of the correspondence then, and
Your Worship, need to vote on that motion?
the motion.
But did it get it? Oh, Chris doesn't have a seconder either, sorry.
That's correct, that's my understanding. It died for lack of a seconder.
It's great. It's your second time.
Where are we now?
Without a seconder, the motion dies as well, Your Worship.
Okay.
I just did.
Councillor Anderson has seconded the motion, Your Worship. Yeah, so it just needs to be debated and voted on.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. So with that, we'll call the question exactly. So all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Johnson and Mayor Tan opposed. Balance of council in favor. The motion passes. And we'll move down into...
I was hoping there's one in this room, I hope.
No. We won't ask right now, just in case. Okay, moving down into item 20, delegations pertaining to items not on the agenda. Miss 20A, Miss June Ross, you have up to 10 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening to you all. My name is June Ross. I live at 3400 Rock City Road. I'm passing you out a document which has a lot of attachments, so I don't intend on going through it all. I understand from the newspaper that Mayor and Council are trying to attract seniors to this city, and yet you cut programs that have worked that have cost the city absolutely nothing in the 6 years that I've been advocating for seniors out of Bowen Seniors. That distresses me a great deal. There are many, many that are going to fall through the cracks. I have served up to 200 residents of this city over the 6 years that I've been doing it. There's a list of the issues that are also attached there for you to have a look at. Following my training as a seniors advocate, I approached several organizations for a place to hang the hat of a volunteer seniors advocate. I spoke at length with Brian Sugiyama in 2006, and he graciously offered me use of a room at the then Bowen Park Seniors. It is important to be connected to a facility where seniors appear or associate with, so the rec center was a great fit for the program. It was also important to be covered by some kind of insurance policy, and I had understood from Brian that I was covered under the volunteer policy that was in place, and to have a place to be able to store files to protect individuals who came to see me. There's a huge responsibility that goes along with this volunteer work as far as privacy information legislation. I had a file cabinet in Brian's office for this purpose. The attached notice, which is in there, was posted on the bulletin board at Bowen Seniors when I first began the service. I thought you'd be interested in seeing it. In March of 2006, I also appeared before City Council requesting that you support a resolution that was going to the UBCM that year supporting the concept of regional seniors advocates, and I have regional senior advocacy offices, and I have attached what you dealt with and what went forward to UBCM as a reminder. My understanding was that Council had agreed to support that resolution at the 2006 convention. An amended form of the main resolution, which the City of Nanaimo had also submitted a resolution, was passed. And yet, here we are, 6 years later, with Council terminating the volunteer position I have been performing for 6 years. And I have to say here, everything that I have done there, the paper that has been used for letters, the stamps, any applications I've had to do to residential tenancy on tenancy issues, those costs I have borne. I have never gone to the city or to Bowen Seniors for any kind of funding at all. And many of the clients, so that you know, that I see are low-income persons. I can't go to them to help with any kind of residential tenancy. As an example, it's $100 for the first person, $25 for every person thereafter. I can't go and ask low-income seniors for funds, so I have funded that myself from my pension, so that you know that. So now you've terminated the position, which makes absolutely no sense to me at all. We're going to continue to have numbers of people falling through the cracks. I went to Bowen Seniors to perform my advocacy once a month on the second Tuesday of the month. My hours there were from 12:30 to 2:30. Many of the issues that I dealt with, I also had to carry on with from home because they were more in-depth kind of situations, and I had research that I needed to do and phone calls that I did, and I usually did those from home. The issues are varied, and I provide that list to you so you can see the kinds of matters I have dealt with. I have dealt with tenancy issues, bankruptcies, death of a spouse, will, power of attorney and representation agreement matters, acted as a liaison between senior clients and the system, and an example of that is home and community support and any arm of government, pension issues, filling out SAFER forms, filling out guaranteed income supplement forms. And those are all issues, so that you know they are issues for many seniors within this community. The tenancy issues can get confrontational, particularly when one is dealing with a private owner of an apartment building or a seniors facility. I will never apologize for taking these issues on, because if any of you had any idea how some of our seniors are treated by private owners, you would think you lived in a third world country. Abuse, by the way, is a light term I use for how some owners of various buildings and facilities treat our seniors. Many who come to me with tenancy issues are not only seniors, but they are low-income seniors, and the majority of them are women, and I will always support them. I don't tolerate abuse very well, so I have taken on issues with owners. You will see that there's probably over the 6 years, I would think on average, one a year. Okay? There's about 6 of them in there. And again, many of them are, it isn't just a single complainant. I've had as many as 12 complainants within a facility. One such owner recently got upset because I contacted them on behalf of 3 senior women who had come to see me with complaints about their building. The owner, instead of dealing directly with me, called the person who heads up the Bowen Park facility and lodged a complaint. The owner of the apartment building also sent the letter I had sent them on behalf of the 3 individuals to the in-charge at Bowen Seniors. In my view, this is a direct violation of the Privacy Act. Instead of calling me and speaking with me directly, the head at Bowen Seniors then immediately went to the board at Harbor City Seniors, and they made a decision to terminate the services of the advocate. Was I upset? Oh yes, I was. I think it was very unprofessionally done. I was never contacted by the head of Bowen Seniors. I wasn't contacted by the head of Harbor City Seniors to meet with that board and discuss whatever the complaint had been. I asked questions of the owner of the apartment building, and they will always, if you knew the numbers, and out of out of the 6 that I've done, probably 5 of them, I've had threats of lawsuits. Fill your boots is what I've said to the owners, and generally, as you get them to sit down and discuss issues, things get resolved. That's the idea, is to sit and discuss and try to resolve them. As I said, I think that the whole way that the termination of the position came about was very unprofessional, and it has now left our most vulnerable citizens open to further abuses. The board at Harbour City Seniors never invited me to a meeting to discuss what it is I do, or to even hear the client side of any issues I deal with. They went ahead and made a decision to terminate the position without any understanding at all. The City Council has also never asked to meet to discuss this entire issue either. You have just terminated 6 years of effort, and I wonder why that is. You have also not checked with other municipalities to see which ones offer advocacy under their umbrella, and there are some which do so. Why has that not been checked out prior to termination of the function of a seniors advocate? I've been told both in the last meeting and prior, my services do not fit with the Parks and Rec and Culture model, which includes amongst its statements the well-being of our citizens in Nanaimo. Individuals will not participate in activities if their mental status is awry. Well-being and physical activity also includes mental well-being. I also think that between 150 and 200 clients would disagree with the statement that advocacy is not a fit with park, recs, and culture. I could go on, but rather than do that, I am requesting that Council seriously look at the entire issue, speak with me about what it is I do after 6 years of doing it, and look at reinstating the advocacy program, either, if not out of Harbour City Seniors or the Bowen Centre, then from some area within the city where I know I'm protected for liability insurance in case anything should go awry. You need to know, I go to people's homes. I visit them there. I've had one client for 2.5 years. Saw her through a bankruptcy, helped with all of that, got her guaranteed income supplement. She was an individual who was trying to live on $900 and some odd a month when I first started with her.
Okay, we're up to about 12.5 minutes of your 10-minute time.
Okay, all right. So I'll stop. You've got it there, and I would really ask that you look at things again and reconsider.
Thank you very much. I see no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, question period, agenda items only.
Yep, I'm here. I'm astounded with all of you on the water issue. Mr. Councilman Anderson, you are absolutely incorrect in your statement that Council did not vote on those on our project, the Blue Community Project. They absolutely did. And if you have had questions about what it was our resolution said, why have you not asked to meet with a group of us that did the presentation? Instead of, again, going back to an admin staff who in my view are already overworked, to do something that has already been done. You can legislate smoking, you can't legislate that water's the human right. Give me a break.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
I'm just going to comment to some of the things that you've said, and obviously I'm not on. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing I have to say is that I don't think council would have supported my motion if they didn't agree with me that that was not what council decided. I never said that being a blue community is a bad thing, but what I would like to know is what the full implications are, and I think that's what my job is as a councillor, is to make sure that I make fact-based decisions, not just moral decisions of what I think is good, because I'm here to represent the entire community. The second thing as well is I think that you should go speak to Mr. Manley, who came and brought the presentation, because we've had numerous conversations since the time that you came. So thank you.
Mr. Manley was one of four of us. Vancouver Island Water Watch was the main presenter. Mr. Manley agreed to present on all of the groups that were a part of that presentation, and Mr. Manley is not authorized to speak on behalf of the whole group, just as I am not authorized to speak on behalf of the whole group. I'm here speaking to you as one of those people who stood before this council, had since gone to Maud Barlow to get her to come and do a presentation to council, and now has to go back and say, scrap it. I'm really distressed. I have to say that. I think council needs to give its head a big shake.
Ms. Ross, one last comment is that I would ask that you send me an email to george.anderson@nanaimo.ca, and we can set up a meeting at your convenience.
I would like a meeting with all of council and not just with yourself. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Charles Thurkill, 611 Shaughnessy Place. And I have a question on item 11L and 15A, 1 and 2. But first of all, if I could, I just want to say thanks to everybody concerned for all the hard work that's gone on protecting Harewood Plains. And it looks as though that all those walks that we have done, some of them with city staff last year, have highlighted the value of this meadow at the national level. And I really appreciate the thought and all the work that's gone into protecting those meadows. So that said, item 11L relates to, and I'm going to be specific here because I'm not a diplomat, but it relates to Regional Recycling's application on Hayes Road to go full bore, full menu or full stream recycling at their new facility on Hayes Road. I just want to comment that on Saturday, I was one of the judges at the environmental mine grind put on by the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange. That's a business that has been in Nanaimo since 1990. That's 22 years of service. It's a homegrown business, and it has enormous public support. And I think that, cut a long story short, that having two recycling facilities on across the road from one another is extremely destructive. I think that it would only serve to confuse the people of Nanaimo as to where to take their recycling materials, and it could only damage a business that has put their hearts and souls into developing recycling in this city. I heard it said at the exchange, because there were people from the solid waste recycling branch of their RDN, that we have the best record in BC on recycling here. Part of that is due to the work at the RDN level, and a lot of it is thanks to the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange. They have an astounding menu or a series of waste streams that they already deal with very, very efficiently. I realize that there have been complaints from some of the nearby car dealerships, and I think that's to be expected because this is a grassroots business, and recycling is not the same as going to the hospital. It's not aseptic, and I think that the time has come when the city needs to support the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange in developing their facility rather than actually scuttling it and destroying the good work that they've already done. I'm very glad to hear that there's going to be a public meeting. I fully intend to go and give all my support to the NRE, and I think that I think personally I would always go with the homegrown business that have put their hearts again into their work rather than with a big box approach. And Original Recycling is a North American consortium. We don't know who owns them. More importantly, we don't know who is going to own them in 20 years' time, and we don't know what the fate of that particular venture would be. I think that there is a place in Nanaimo for recycling depots in the north end and in the south end, but the one that's already in the middle should be left to do business unhindered. And the fact is that they're on the agenda tonight. They couldn't be bothered to come here. So I don't understand why there would be any haste in dealing with their application. And I think it should go the process and go to public hearing. They have already preempted your decision. They already had a sign saying that they were in the recycling business. And that preempts, and it actually is, it's a bit of an insult to you that they've done that. So I just want to say that, you know, this is a great place to live. We do have the best recycling services available in the province. Let's not damage that. Let's build up on it instead of putting two competitors on the same street. Anyway, thank you very much. And again, thank you for the hard work on Howard Place. Good night.
Fred Taylor of 204 Emery Way. I would like to ask for the chair to Councillor Brennan, and I may be missing something, but have you ever attempted to put a motion on the floor to have a social member on PNAC?
It's your discretion. It's entirely up to you.
There was a social planning representative on PNAC.
I know that.
And so this new configuration removes it. I asked staff for an explanation of that. I asked staff to assure me that there was a method of, identifying when social development issues would be a part of the discussion on applications at PNAC. They assured me that would be done. They assured me that they would bring in the social planner at those times. So what I said was, okay, I'll accept that for the time being. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to make sure that I'm satisfied that that actually happens. And so I didn't make a motion because I said I'm going to sit and watch this process take place for a while.
It's my opinion you may have had support. And my second question is, do you or any members in this social community keep an eye on the agenda of this committee? Because I have found that under Councillor Paggi, they're very friendly group. You can get the opportunity, if it's an issue regarding social, to sit at the table and openly discuss it. You don't get a vote, but is somebody keeping an eye on their agendas each month so that you can address the chair similar to anyone else addressing to speak to a committee or something?
I can address that. We haven't gone that far yet, but I can tell you that this council met 4 days ago with School District 68, with the school trustees, and at that point they already knew that, for instance, School District 68 was not going to be any longer on PNAC. And so what that one person who used to be on there asked me was to see if we could not set up a system where they would still get the agenda for PNAC, and if that goes for School District 68, then there would be no reason that we could not do that for VIU or for the Port Authority or for social planning and any other committee that used to be on there.
I believe the staff connected are very to the point of sending it to anyone that's connected with an issue. They seem to do that quite well.
Well, I think it would have satisfied school district if they can count on regular receiving of the agenda, and what's good for them we can do for our committees too. So I think that's a good suggestion. I'll pursue that for you.
And my last questions to the council as a whole, page 185 on neighborhood networks, etc., committees, etc. I'm under the understanding by previous management, etc., to the city that a neighborhood association is self-appointed, represents no one officially, because you do not have, you're not voted. You people are the representatives of everybody in the community. Neighborhood associations apparently are just another voice, and therefore I wonder how you would be able to control another voice. And for instance, I'm, I believe, the second oldest neighborhood association in the city, and I have found through experience it's hard to get people repeatedly all the time when there's nothing happening in their backyard. And for example, quarter-way wet housing happening in the backyard. I had lots of members, lots of houses to meet in, everything. It's an issue that, it seems to be an issue driven to bring these groups out to speak. And I hope you keep that in mind, because there has been requests for minutes of associations, but the association, like the Nanaimo Hospital Association, couldn't get copies of the minutes conducted by Mr. Horn at the church on Meredith Road. They got them through the provincial government. If you don't work hand in hand, how do you expect things from the neighborhood associations? And I have a great concern because Hospital Association, membership, no, different things. There's answers yes or no to some of these things here, and I wonder who generated this list, because this room was full of people from Western Neighborhood or all the community around the wet housing. In fact, I was even asked to include that area up to Townside Road in my area. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, is there anyone else who wants to deal with agenda items only?
Gord Fuller, 604 Nickel Street. I was going to put my first two questions off to emails, but I figured, seeing as I've got a third question I wanted to ask, I'll ask all three here. First is with regards to the Island Timberlands presentation, and they mentioned they invited council on a tour of, I believe it's the Jump Lake area. Are you aware of whether they have invited the Snuneymuxw First Nations to do the same?
It's their function. I'm not aware of it. I hope they do. I think it would be nice for them to do that, but I'm not aware of it. They've organized this whole thing.
I agree it would be nice, and hey, if you think it's nice, maybe you can put a word in for it. The next is with regards to community contributions. I believe at one point last year, Councillor Kipp brought forward a request for staff to do a presentation on community contributions that would involve the public in the discussion, and I'm wondering if there's been any progress on this, or whether it happened and the public weren't invited, or what's going on with that one.
Councillor Kipp, did you have a...
We reviewed it only through a short meeting with the Development Review Committee. That's all we've ever done, I think.
Yes, Your Worship. It's been an ongoing item that the Development Process Review Committee is looking at and reviewing, and there's a report coming forward to the committee in the near future, which would then generate a recommendation to Council for its consideration.
Should be interesting, seeing as the Review Committee, Development Review Committee is primarily developers who wouldn't want to increase community contributions.
Okay, we have a question for you. Councillor Beswick.
Thanks, Gord, for your question. As a member of the DPRC, we identified approximately 18 items that we're working through in the first 12 months, and it's one of the reasons why Councillor McKay indicated that we're meeting twice monthly. And those items have all been identified, of which one is the community contributions. And we had a guest speaker come from Vancouver to address us over the course of an hour and a half, and it was well worth his investment in coming coming to speak to us about it, and we're all anxious to see where the community contribution report, when it comes back to us, so looking forward to it. And
Your Worship, I might also point out that community contributions is not a new issue. It's embedded in the official community plan as policy. It actually talks about what items should be negotiated in each neighborhood, and I suspect had community input during the last round of the OCP. But for the public, it is actually there in the document.
Thank you.
Well, I look forward to any report that might actually see us get a fair community contribution as opposed to the paltry one we get right now that's ancient and far less than other communities get. Last question, and this is with regards to the seniors advocacy. I think June Ross asked if council would be willing to revisit this, and I'm just curious as to whether they are going to. It seems to me that seniors advocacy is a huge thing that this community needs right now, and as well as in the future as the population ages. And with people like June Ross going above and beyond in doing what she's doing, I mean, we need this. So I'm wondering if council is going to seriously take a look at this, revisit it, and come back.
Yeah, I can't answer that now, but I think there's a chance that we certainly will, but I can't make any guarantees at this point.
Okay, that's an honest answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew O'Donnell, 771 Arbutus, here in Nanaimo. My question's about the Blue Communities. 3 resolutions put forth, and you're asking once again for the city to give you a report on the effect of the city of Nanaimo. The report's already there, like I read it. It's in the agenda tonight. It seems like a thorough report. What more information do you need? I mean, to clarify, I know there's some discussion going on about, for instance, like with the dragon boats and people on a team being able to drink bottled water, but I don't think that's what the resolution was. I don't think it's banning anyone from consuming bottled water. That would be, well, not good, but I don't, as it pertains to actually for city facilities, events, selling bottled water, the report's there. What more information do you need? Not a rhetorical question.
It's at your discretion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For me, I put the motion forward that council didn't know what it was getting itself into at the point that we thought we were just getting a report. We weren't designating Nanaimo as a blue community. And I haven't said at all in either the previous meeting on March 26th or in this meeting that it's a bad idea to do any of those 3 resolutions. But I think it's important that we make fact-based decisions, and that report only talks about designating ourselves and what's the correct way and approach to becoming a blue community. And I don't think that's what council asked for, and hence I put the motion forward, and council accepted that as what council wanted for information. So for me, the information wasn't sufficient, and as Councillor McKay mentioned earlier, there are things that are happening within our community. As you know, we only have 5 to 8 years left for water or whatever it is, that there may be some implications with putting forward all of those resolutions. So I think it's important that council does its due diligence and make sure that it has the absolute correct information possible before it makes a decision on that. That's why I put it forward. And I don't think anyone can really say it's bad to have too much information.
Fair enough. Could I have one follow-up question? I read the city report, and there's a plan, there's a 3-year plan, there's costs associated, there's how much money Pepsi or Nestle or whatever are going to lose off selling bottled water without taking into consideration they'll make more money when they replace the bottled water. All the information's there. I mean, are you going to ask the city to waste more manpower and tax dollars on repeating the same report and then also saying water should be a human right? I mean,
I think Councillor Anderson has answered the question. Are you comfortable with
I
that?
think I have answered the question, but I will just mention once again that council has made the decision tonight that we would like more information, and the individuals who voted for that said that they need more information to make a decision, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having more information to make sure that we're making a credible decision, because as we're supposed to be representatives of the community, it's our responsibility to make fact-based decisions, not just to make decisions based on our own moral values. It's to make fact-based decisions. I could easily tell you, if I was out of this role, that I would say water is a human right and all of those other things, but it's not my place to say, this is what George Anderson wants. I'm supposed to do what's best for the entire community, and I think that's why the rest of council, as well, who represents the community, said that they want more information.
Fair enough. I agree with you, but just from the discussion that I heard through, earlier on tonight, I'm concerned that you'll make future decisions based off of incorrect assumptions as opposed to the facts laid out in reports.
Well, I don't agree with that, because you'll always be here to correct us, so don't be alarmed. We'll be watching for you. Thanks very much.
Take care.
Now, seeing no one else, does someone like to make the motion to? Okay, in a second. We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.